That's fine.
My little recording button,
Yeah.
so we can do it later. Use it later. All
so,
right.
what I want to talk about on our inaugural show here, the first one is character creation.
Yes.
So I know that you haven't been playing, but you played a little bit in high school,
Mm-hmm.
and then now this campaign that we're playing now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Only the two.
Right. Now, I have DM'd for about 16 years now. So, little while. Yeah.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
That's cool.
So, that being the case, something that, I mean, I imagine that you have a lot of questions, but something that I see a lot is, regardless of the system, people pick up the book, and when they pick up the book, they see the name of the class, and the class will say, this is the rogue, this is the warrior, this is the whatever.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what system it is. In Star Wars, you have the Jedi, you have the bounty hunter or the soldier or fighter, you have the nobleman. Now, if we think about movies or books, video games to a certain extent, those media formats do not have that same limitation. They don't have, this class means that you have to be this.
Okay.
So, when we talk about something like Indiana Jones, for example, how would you build an Indiana Jones in Dungeons and Dragons?
That's a good question.
Right.
What would he be?
Well, he could be a lot of.
Yeah,
he
you
could
could
be a
build
lot
him
of
a couple
things.
different ways.
Right. But more than that, what I'm getting at is a different approach to making the character in the first place. Okay. So before you even crack open the book, okay, so you know that you want to play Dungeons and Dragons or Star Wars or 100 other 1,000 different RPG systems that exist right now. So my suggestion is to come up with the character first. And then when you have the character, then we go and we say, okay, cool, we have the character that we want to play. Now let's go and see what game mechanics fit this character best.
Right.
And sometimes it might not just be one thing.
I guess that's also assuming that you kind of know the basic classes. You know what I mean? Or are you saying like being a total noob,
blank slate,
don't know anything, you're just like, what do you want to be? And
Yeah,
you're just
absolutely.
Like, I want to throw, just make sense.
So my suggestion is to do something like this, right? So you go in and you say, hey, you live in a world where there's dragons, there's monsters, there's guys that can do magic, there's knights on horseback, King Arthur's, Gandalf's, and everything in between. And you just kind of present that as a general setting. You tell your player, hey, this is a world where Conan can coexist with Frodo. And the guy with the beard from Harry Potter. And Harry Potter, for that matter.
What was his name? I love that guy. The big guy.
Joseph Stalin.
Well, you know his real name?
No, that's the character's name, Joseph Stalin.
No, we're thinking of two different guys. I thought you were talking about the big guy from Harry Potter.
Yeah.
That takes care of him. He's like, you're a wizard, Harry.
Yeah. His name's Joseph Stalin.
Anyway. Oh, what's up? Yeah, this is him. That's the DM. That's the man. You see that beard? That's a legendary beard. That gets trimmed every now and then.
It does. It gets kind of ratty at the ends if I don't.
Yeah.
But yes, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is you don't even crack open a book, okay?
You just get your idea first.
Right.
Right.
Come up with an idea. Where do you see your character fitting in. And maybe you only know as much as maybe, okay, well my dude's a blacksmith, and he made a really valuable sword and people want it because whatever reason. Who cares?
Yeah, right, whatever.
And then from there, then you can open up the book. Now you have the character already set in place.
So, do you think it'd be safe, because we talked about this a little bit as far as backstory.
Sure.
And having a smaller backstory rather than some huge backstory where you're an awesome character, but then you start at level 1.
Sure, yeah.
And it doesn't make sense. Right. So, do you think it'd be safe to kind of, when you're building you're thinking of your character, have a small little backstory in mind?
So, what I say is give the DM or GM just enough that they know what your character is about. Okay, so obviously we're wanting to build a character that fits in the world and would have a reason for going out and doing heroic things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we know we want our character to go out and do heroic things. Now that we know that, how do we get them out the door?
Right.
Okay. So, kind of a situation like that, I imagine the DM sitting down and the player came up and they said, hey, I'm going to be playing Bilbo Baggins and he loves his house and he doesn't want to leave. And then the DM's like, well, shit.
Yeah,
how do I get this guy out the door now?
Yeah, how do I get him on a crusade or on a out the door on a journey?
So the DM says, well, all right. So I'm gonna shove a bunch of dwarfs in your home.
Yeah, there you go.
And the dwarfs are gonna try to get you dwarfs and a wizard for that matter.
Oh, how about
they all go into the.
What are we referencing?
Yeah. So they go into his house and they say, okay, let's go on the adventure. And the player playing...
Yeah, we need a thief.
Right. Well, the player playing Bilbo, he says, no, I don't want to go. And so the rest of the guys sitting at the table are like, well, okay, hell with you. We're going to play this game without you then. You can sit and watch.
Well, let us just eat all your food first.
Right.
And we'll...
Yeah, we need to take a long rest here and there.
Yeah, we're going to take a couple long rests.
So they take a long rest in Bilbo's house and then they leave and then Bilbo says, well, I want to be part of the group, and so then he follows along. But in any case, I think that all the way through the player character coming up with the idea for Bilbo Baggins, I don't think that the class was ever introduced yet.
Right. I mean, because he's a thief, but he's really not like what you think about when you think thief.
Right.
He's not like... just
not,
always in the shadows,
sure,
and like
he's
shivving
not,
somebody in the back or something.
Right.
That's,
mustache twirling,
right.
bandit mask wearing.
And that's not him. So, you kind of build your...
Mm-hmm. So the character was built before the class was added on top of it. Then, when the character is played throughout the campaign, the character is played to the character rather than the character being played to the class.
Okay.
So let's go and talk about this blacksmith character again.
Okay.
We have a kind of generic D&D world, and we have this blacksmith character. Okay. Now the player opens up a book, and they're flipping through the pages, and they say, "Oh wow, look at that! I can be a character that has innate magic powers. How cool is this?" So then he says, "Well, maybe my character uses the innate control of fire to power the forges. That's what he does to... Think of something like the world of Avatar, The Last Airbender.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen?
I have not.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
So,
donate on me.
In Avatar, there are several different kingdoms.
Right, there's like the wind and fire and earth. I do know
and
that.
then they kind of treat the different elements sort of like martial arts there. When you learn that martial art, now you get to do fire powers. If you enough. So maybe this, right. So now we have a sorcerer, and instead of him being like, oh, okay, I'm doing spells. Maybe he's not actually doing spells. Maybe he's doing a kata that at the end of his kata he releases that spell and out comes fire.
So it's not like words or anything. It's just a
it's a kata.
A symbol? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
So
it's kind of magic symbol.
Right. So he draws a magic symbol with his kata, doing his karate, and at the end of it, bang.
To go along with that.
Yes.
That may not be in the D&D book that you have in front of you. So your DM would have to kind of play into what you're thinking, really.
Wouldn't even have to.
Really?
Not even have to.
Okay.
Okay. And this is why. Because the only thing that you're doing in this case is you're picking up the mechanics of the game from the book.
Just the logic.
Just the rules. That's all we need.
Yeah.
We just need that rule that says this person can make a fireball. Awesome. Now we take that fireball spell and we say, now it's on our blacksmith that does his katas to make a spell.
So you're saying all the, I guess, aesthetics, or all the, even the animations or any of that stuff is all like more personalized rather than, you know, you have to do it like this.
Absolutely, yes.
You know what I mean?
Because a lot of times the books will say, you know, the character does this and this and releases a fireball.
Fire comes from his,
right.
You know.
And that to us, for the case of the martial arts blacksmith, is completely irrelevant. We don't care about that. Okay?
It really doesn't matter.
Right, exactly. So now we have it, and now we have a way to, as we're leveling up this character, when we're picking out new spells or new skills or new class features, now we have something that we can keep in mind. That he is a blacksmith that does these karate katas to cast, or it would be mechanically it's casting.
Mechanically cast.
He's generating these spells that bang, now I do a fire from my hands.
Yeah.
Okay. So now at a certain point, sorcerers can do like twin spell. Okay. So they can shoot their spell at two different people. So now your sorcerer just learned a new kata.
Okay.
So now your sorcerer can do his regular wah wah wah, but at the end he goes yeah.
Right.
And shoots the spell two different directions.
Modify it however you need to.
They also get quicken, so they can do their kata faster. So they rush through it. Yeah.
Now does quicken mean?
So have you seen?
You can still cast and attack. What does that mean?
Kind of. So.
And is this a feat?
It's a class feature of sorcerers.
Class feature of sorcerers.
Yes.
Okay.
It's just something.
Right.
It's something that they have to choose. It's called meta magic. So
all right.
At certain levels, they get different choices
and
between.
Is this 5?
Yes, it is 5th edition.
5th edition.
Yes.
Okay.
Now we've been using the example of sorcerers for a little while, but you can do it with many other classes. Okay. One of my favorite examples is the rogue. Okay. So the rogue, if we think about what a rogue is.
Hey, Stan. Just breathe.
So if we think about what a rogue is a light and nimble fighter that uses light swords and is lightly armored. Okay.
To sneak.
They can sneak, yes. In combat, they sneak.
Backstab.
They backstab, yes. But their main goal is to not get hit when they're in combat.
Yes,
okay?
They even have like a disengage.
Yeah, they have disengage, and then they have another skill that I can't remember what it's called because I don't play rogues. But once per round,
I don't either.
Once per round, they can choose to take half damage on a single
that's
attack.
right. Yeah.
Okay. Now, if we kind of think a little bit about, in a world with knights and nobles and, merchants and dragons and dungeons and things like this. So, we can think of people that would prefer to be dressed this way, right? So let's say you're a noble, for example, okay? Now a noble would prefer not to get hit. And a noble is not going to be walking around in armor all the time.
What exactly is a noble?
So when we're talking about nobles, we can use anything from a duke, a prince, basically any lords or ladies.
Okay.
Lords and ladies, highfalutin type people.
Got
Okay.
it. So
Now,
in our campaign, I would be an actual noble
you would be,
Okay.
yes.
because I'm a
So
prince.
in this case,
Okay.
you came out to be a paladin,
Mhm.
and we're working that into the game.
Yes.
But you could have just as easily been a rogue.
Right.
But you being a rogue would only be your class. You can still be a prince,
Yeah.
but when you were brought up, because of the way that your house was, they didn't want you running around in armor all the time because it wasn't fancy or, whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. So instead, they said, okay, look, this is the weapon we're going to give you. It's mainly decorative, this weapon that we're giving you. So they give you this decorative weapon, and they say, carry this around and look fancy, and here's your fancy man clothes. And then you walk around and you do fancy man stuff with your fancy man sword.
All right.
But what happens is some big, armored up dude with this great big sword, he comes to attack the fancy man with his fancy man clothes, takes his swing, but the fancy man's too quick.
Right.
Because the noble house is they're well prepared to have assassination attempts done on them. Okay. So they train, at least to some extent, all their lords and ladies in martial techniques, sort of like a self-defense course, right, for lords and ladies. That way, if somebody comes up to fight you, you can duck a blade.
Okay.
Or stab somebody, and you stab somebody, and then you disengage them.
Is this more like story stuff, or is that actually written in there, like for the nobles and shit? I'm sure that's probably just a house.
I don't think that it would be written in, but it may be, But
Right.
kind of what I'm getting at, though, in general, is to think about the character first, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then after you have the character, then you open up the book, and then you say, "Oh wow, this works really well."
Yeah. What plays more into the kind of character I want?
Right.
What options are available
Yeah.
to me to really do what I want?
Right.
My vision for my character.
And kind of along the same lines, when we're talking about nobility, the fighter from the book, you don't have to be the ex-military, mercenary, whatever.
You can be.
You can be.
You can do whatever
That is
you
the
want.
thing, but guarantee it's been done before, and your DM
1,000 times.
probably doesn't care to hear it again.
I mean, we have Drizdu Erden in our day.
We do. He is Drizzt.
That's not his character name. It's Undu, right?
No, Undu is our cleric.
Oh crap, not Undu. Gosh, I'm so bad at this. I keep mixing up the characters.
Speaking of Undu, there is something that I like about Undu's background. Undu is a princess.
Yes.
So Undu is a princess, came from this tribe of people,
Mm-hmm.
and the tribe very likely did not worship the god that Undu, the character, worships. They probably worship somebody else. Undu was off picking berries or dancing or tripping on acid or something. Came back and everybody's dead, right? Okay. So then Undu gets a call from the god, and it says, "Hey, you're gonna work for me now."
Okay.
And Undu says, "All right."
So your whole family got murdered, and the god says, I
I got a mission for you.
got a mission for you. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
That's
kind of
pretty
like
cool.
kind of like
Pretty cool.
Blues Brothers a little bit. We're on a mission from Gad.
Here's a mission from Gad. From
A
Gad.
little bit of Blues Brothers.
Alright.
Undu puts on the glasses and
That's cool.
rolls out.
That's cool.
So
That's cool.
again, you don't have to look at the cleric class and say, "Oh, a cleric, this must be a priest," because it doesn't have to be.
I know he doesn't even act like a priest.
No.
No, not at all.
And there are other examples of that in TV and literature as well. So, in Game of Thrones, there's a character. I don't have to spoil anything to tell you this, but there's a character in Game of Thrones that can heal, resurrect, and cast fire spells. but he doesn't necessarily act like a cleric. He's constantly drunk. He swears. He fights people with swords. He's completely the opposite of what you would typically picture a cleric to be.
Yeah, like a battle.
Yeah. So that's the whole thing about it is you want to kind of push yourself away from the book a little bit when you're creating your character, right?
I was telling some people, the books, I used to think they were guidelines, which kind of, that's pretty much what it is, just guidelines, but more so suggestions.
That's really, I think that's the best way to think about
suggestions.
The book, is they are suggestions.
Right.
If the book says, hey, this is what this thing is, even if it said, this is what this is.
Like a monster or whatever?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, any rule.
Right.
It doesn't matter what the rule is. If it says, this is what this is, then you say, okay, normally, sure. But in this group, and that's something else to think about too, is when you're playing any role-playing game, your character is the spotlight. Your character is the focus of that campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're doing that, your character is going to be special and the exception to everything else that exists in the world. That's why you can have a party where you have a very powerful wizard standing next to a lizard man, standing next to a standing next to a Goliath or something like
or
this.
a dragon or anybody.
And they all have a dwarf friend who's a cleric, right? So now when they're moving around in the world and they're interacting with things, a lot of times the book will say, okay, hey, this is the stats for a skeleton, and this is what skeletons do.
Mm-hmm.
But in the same way that your human wizard is not a normal human, that skeleton that you run into may not necessarily be a normal skeleton. You see?
Okay.
So
you're saying just add in...
Well, the things that you interact with can be special too. It doesn't necessarily just have to be the players that are special.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that can be fun and interesting for the players to interact with too. And as a DM, you have to keep those things. You got to keep it spiced up.
Yeah. I like how you throw abilities around on different creatures.
Yeah.
That may or may not even supposed to have it.
Right.
It's like, this will be fun.
Yeah, and that's really is what I do because
And you adjust their hit points based on how many people we got playing.
Right. Yeah. But you know, it's the same thing for players as it is for DMs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the player is playing a human, but that human, even though humans, if you pull up a human in the monster manual, for example, it'll say, hey, this is what a human looks like.
Right.
Okay, great. That's what most humans look
Right.
like. But this party has a human that can cast firebolts out of their eyeballs or some shit like that, right? Okay. Right, yeah. We got Superman over here. So if we got Superman in the party...
You could kind of make Superman.
Right.
If you want.
You could. You know, you just reflavor a bunch of spells.
Reflavor a bunch of spells.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that probably reflavor
I'm sure
spells...
that's been done. A Marvel D&D.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a couple different systems.
Speaking of...
They're pretty fun. They're pretty fun.
We had a request for Mario D&D.
And
I think that's actually a pretty hell of an idea. It's going to take some time, of course.
I don't think it would take as much time as you think.
Really? That's good to know.
For one thing, there's plenty of lore established for
already, yeah,
the Mario universe.
Right.
Another thing is, you know, Mario is kind of wacky anyway, so you can pretty much just add whatever you want to it.
I was wondering if we would use existing characters, or if we would actually come up with our own characters.
Right. So
you know what I mean? To give it that D&D flavor, like
So, in much the same way that you
mentioned,
off topic like a little bit off topic, but it's okay. You know, in much the same way that you mentioned the Marvel role-playing game, there are options too if you want to be Wolverine or if you want to be whatever Marvel character. here's this character stat block printed in the guide for it, so you can just play that character. But the great thing about it is, and to me, when you play a role-playing game, to me the part of the fun of playing the character is to come up with something that people would want to write books about.
Right.
Right. So the first time Driz Doran was played at a table, he was played before the book came out, and people said, "Wow, this character is really neat. Let's see what he would look like if we," because that's where he came from.
Mm-hmm.
He came from the game.
Yeah.
And a lot of the characters in the D&D novels come from games that.
So the game came out before the books were even a thing? Had to have been, right?
The game's been around.
Yeah,
for
the
a
game's been
long
around
time.
forever.
Right.
Like you can thank D&D for all your current RPG games,
Right.
period.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, we can even look further back than that.
Yeah.
Role-playing games originated from a war game that they would play in, I think, Eastern Europe.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, and it was, a war game, and they would have a rules guy, and these two generals would come in. These are, actual army generals would come in with the rule guy, and they would say, okay, this is what my army does. And the other guy says, well, this is what my army does. And they say, okay. And then both of those generals step out of the room, and the rules guy writes some stuff down. The two guys come back in, and the rules guy says, okay, this is what happened. So it's the same thing.
Yeah, basically.
And then from there, they moved it to miniatures, and they pushed it out into a hobby. And
I'll be damned.
some of the hobbies.
What was the name of it?
I don't know.
We'll
but
look it up later. We'll
yeah, I will find out. It's
That's cool. I'd like to know that.
Yeah,
I'm looking
it's
into it a little more.
the Russian. I'm pretty sure it was Russian war game.
Russian war game.
I'll write that down.
That's
And,
cool.
yeah.
So more in is
Yeah.
so we were talking about just having an idea before you go in,
Yes.
before you even open the book, and a small backstory, nothing too intricate,
Yes.
nothing crazy,
Right. Because.
because you're starting at level 1.
Yeah.
You don't want to have a bunch of stories about these amazing dragons that
Sure.
you slayed,
Sure.
but you're only level 1. How does that work?
Right.
But as far as actual character creation, like the numbers and stuff, is there anything we want to show them today about that?
Okay, so we can talk a little bit about that. So there's, whatever role-playing game you play, there's different stats that are going to be part of it. And generally speaking, I know there's a lot of debate about, munchkins and min-maxing and, just statting your character up so that it's whatever. Okay.
You talking about like metagaming? What are you talking?
No. So there are.
Let me get my coffee.
Okay.
Right back.
So what I'm talking about with this is there are people that will say, well, I know I'm playing a fighter, but I want to play a very charismatic fighter.
Okay.
So even though I'm playing the fighter in the party, I want my fighter to have a 18 charisma, but only a 10 strength.
Really? Okay.
Okay. And the justification for that is even though. What about me? Oh, your wife also wants some coffee. She's welcome to some coffee.
I could bring you some.
Bring some coffee.
Some coffee, boys. Boys and girls. Oh, FF fans left.
That's okay. He
That's-
does that sometimes.
Yeah, he wasn't around for the
Um,
Mario talk.
So the idea behind it is people will say, well, I want to play a character how the character is described in their background and not take into consideration the mechanics of the game. And that's okay to do, but my personal philosophy is this, okay? If you create a character and you're playing your character and you want to see the next part of the story, I feel like it's probably maybe a good idea to have your character built in such a way that they can make it to that next part of the story.
What exactly do you mean by that?
Okay.
Like an example, I guess.
So let's go back to our 18 charisma fighter.
Okay.
He has 10 strength, maybe less. He has 10 strength, 18 charisma, and very low constitution. He's not going to live very long.
He's not the greatest fighter.
Not a great fighter, but he's very charismatic.
Okay.
And his charisma fits very well with his backstory.
Okay.
And that's great. We can do that. But the problem is he's probably not going to live to see the next chapter of his story.
Yeah. No, he's probably not.
No. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with building a very strong character and then also having that very strong roleplay influence on top of that character.
I mean, what if somebody really did do that and then they didn't realize that they were like, oh man, maybe I shouldn't have chose that direction. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I guess in that point, they should have chose something that has more of a focus for that charisma.
Perhaps.
Like a paladin or...
Perhaps. Or another way that we could go about it is, yeah, I think a paladin would be a really good way to go about a very charismatic fighter.
Right.
At that point, what I would suggest for that player to do is every time they use one of their paladin spells, when it's rolled on the table, mechanically you would do a smite.
Right.
Thematically, you would say, you know, my fighter pulls off this super cool fighting technique and does 1,000 slashes, you know, back to back to back to back.
So fast you can't even see.
So fast you can't even see. And I rolled, I don't know how much D8s does Admanos roll now? Like 17 whenever he smites?
No, not that many. It depends on if they're undead or not.
Yeah, but it's a lot.
It's like five or six D8s.
But, so, mechanically, you're using one of your spell slots, you're casting a spell, and you're augmenting your attack. Thematically, though, we could just be a normal fighter that does a really super cool anime move and attacks a million times in a row.
Okay. Yeah.
And this is one of those things, again, that, you know, moving away from, well, the rules say that I'm a paladin, so that means I'm a paladin.
Okay. Yeah. Let's kind of open it up a little bit. Broaden the
Exactly.
parameters.
Yeah, just push yourself away from the book a little bit. So I think that was a great example that you had is, you know, take this paladin or take this fighter that has really high charisma, so you still can be this very suave, charismatic fighter.
Yeah. Make it to where your rolls actually count for something.
Right.
Instead of strength, because you're not going for strength.
And then you get to make it to the next chapter.
Yeah, you actually get to survive.
Yeah.
Not dying.
And you're not a burden to the party.
Hey guys, I know I'm a fighter with 10 constitution
So
or whatever.
I hope you're not expecting me to.
Yeah, I might do a little bit of damage. Keep me alive, please. Thanks. Yeah, fingers crossed at all times.
But you know, that's something great too. Is I'm glad we brought this up too. You know, this kind of gives us a chance to talk about the stats in the game. Now, this part of the discussion here is mostly going to be focused on 5e, 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, because that's what we're playing right now. But in this, what we can do is we can talk about the charisma stat.
Mm-hmm.
We'll start there. Okay, so in our charismatic fighter example, our fighter is using charisma as a means to deal damage to the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, mechanically, we're using the charisma stat, but thematically, that charisma could represent a force of will that you're just exerting.
Yeah, just
You're exerting your presence over the blade and over the enemy, and you're moving in such a way that you're intimidating the enemy, and they can't.
I mean, it's even through you're channeling your god's energy, right? In a way.
If you're playing a paladin, yes. Perhaps though, let's think about something like Animes love doing this,
Yes.
right?
Okay.
So anime, the guy's powering up his thing, yeah, or he's like,
Yeah.
I'm going to unlock my special technique and I'm going to attack you with 1,000 Dragon Suns. Okay,
Right.
now he attacks you with 1,000 Dragon Suns. That's a charisma attack.
Yeah.
And it's a charisma attack because the person
Really
that's
is.
getting punched by that attack is like, oh no, I can't believe he's used this thing on me.
Right.
And they always have this anime character, big eyes, here comes this attack. Okay, the attack comes in, and then the guy gets hurt. It's the same way with our paladin.
Mm-hmm.
The paladin is exerting his presence over the other person, and that's what's doing the damage. That's what's causing the harm.
Mm-hmm. Kind of a way just to understand,
Right.
like what it actually means.
This
like
is a way for us to blend the mechanics
Yes.
into
like how it would work,
the
or like
the
in real
theme.
life or whatever. the
Sure.
theme, sure.
Yeah. And then it still works out great because we can use the charisma maybe instead of being this suave, like, ladies' man person, we can think of charisma as force of presence. Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
So now, instead of us being this, like, very, like, hey, I can silver tongue kind of person, now maybe I'm just like this 8 foot tall, gnarly, like, big gash across the face looking dude, one ear, nose stapled together. But because my presence is so terrifying, when I walk into a room, everybody notices me. That's my charisma.
That's your charisma. Yeah, yeah.
And if I'm negotiating with somebody, when I speak, they listen to every single word. Because when they look at me, they think, well,
It's like intimidation.
yes. But it doesn't always have to be intimidating. Maybe just the character's look is what gets people to listen in the first place. And then once they're listening, then the words can be heard. You see?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, that's on charisma.
right. And I think that thinking about our skills in different ways is really helpful too.
Yeah.
Because like we said with charisma, it can represent many different aspects of a character. And we can do that with a lot of different things. Intelligence, for example, doesn't always necessarily mean how smart somebody is.
Right.
We run into people or it doesn't necessarily mean how smart that person is at everything.
Go into more detail about that.
Okay, so if we talk about somebody like Norman Schwarzkopf,
Mm-hmm.
Storm and Norman, okay, you would describe him as being intelligent.
Okay. All right.
But his intelligence is not the same as Stephen Hawking's intelligence.
Okay.
And one person would look at the other and say, wow, that guy's really good at this thing that he does.
So put that in D&D terms.
Okay, so just because you're playing a high intelligence wizard doesn't mean that he knows everything about everything.
Right.
Okay, maybe your high intelligence wizard knows a lot of shit about spells,
Mm-hmm.
but they've spent their whole life in a library, and when they get out into the real world, they're absolutely
They don't even know what it looks like.
right.
They just
They
read
just
about
have
it.
no clue. So when they're seeing things for the first time, they see things for the first time.
Yeah, they may not even recognize it at first.
Right. They would say, oh, well, I've heard about this in a book,
Mm-hmm.
so I know what it is. But they really don't know what it is. Maybe the information that they got from the book wasn't accurate in the first place.
So that would all come to your backstory,
Sure.
maybe a little bit.
And then we can also say, okay, well, I have a high intelligence character who is very smart about military tactics. You have a general or whatever. doesn't matter. You have a character that has high intelligence, but that high intelligence is not things like book learning. It's things like military tactics or.
So would you say that this is safe if you are going for an intel character?
Yes.
And that would be something like a wizard or a warlock, I think. Maybe a couple others that have emphasis on intel.
Mm-hmm.
Crap, how was I going to ask it? Well, crap. Well, never mind. I was going to ask it in a certain way, and then I
Okay.
kind
Well, we'll come back to
stumbled
it.
over it. Yeah.
In any case, though, it's I think important to not limit yourself when you're thinking about your stats to, oh, intelligence means how smart you are at everything.
Oh, okay. Now, is this more like a you personal DM, or is this more like actually written in there? Because I'm not sure. But when it comes to intel,
Mm-hmm.
would you actually want to say that stuff just so your DM understands the kind of stuff that you are focusing on? Like, would it,
So
like I'm really smart at herbalism and alchemy.
So we have some mechanical things in the game that can support what we have in mind for our character.
Okay.
So if
What's a short list of those?
well, off the top of my head, history is an intelligence check. Arcana is an intelligence check.
What type of magic it was?
Right.
Or is?
So the checks that that the player will make against the character sheet are going to be intelligence based. There's different categories. Typically, they're knowledge type things, right? But maybe mechanically your character has an emphasis on war tactics or something.
Okay,
something
battle
like that.
tactics and
Sure.
stuff. All right, strategy.
So when it comes time for history, what you know of history will
War
all
history.
be war related.
War history.
You say, well, General such and such was fighting so and so here during this, and this is the technique that he used to defeat this other army.
What was I gonna say? So along those notes, or
Yes.
along that line, would
Yes.
it be? Could you just like roll like?
So what if we made it where we didn't even have to roll in the first place?
Not even a roll. Okay, so you're saying.
So the DM presents you a scenario.
And you say,
and
since I have.
You don't even have to say all this, okay? Before you don't even grab your dice. You just say, okay, my character is this nobleman. He was raised in all these war tactics. He knows shit about this stuff here.
Right.
Okay.
And then what's the scenario?
Whatever the scenario is, what you do, you don't even touch the dice. You say, oh, well, I'm familiar with this area because, I studied the tactics of General Lu Zhu
Whatever.
battling Bu Yang here, and when they fought at this location, they did these things. So your character will describe what they know based on what's going on in the environment around them or the scenario that the DM presented. Now, if you are able to articulate what your character is doing based on the situation in such a way that also fits with your character's background, the DM may just say, you know what, that makes sense, that's cool, it sounds fun, it sounds neat, it matches with your background, we'll go for it. You don't
It just
even have to
happens.
roll. It just happens.
Now, I know that may not be kosher with all DMs, probably.
And it wouldn't be.
Because some of them are like, no, you gotta roll.
And that's absolutely true, but that's something that you would have to talk before the game ever even starts. That's something that you would have to talk to your DM about.
And it's perfectly fine to write notes to your DM.
Yes, absolutely. Notes are a huge thing. You
huge.
can pass a note and say, hey, can my character, know about this thing? Because it fits with what I have in mind for this character.
Yep.
And the DM can say, yeah, that's fine, sure. Unfortunately, you weren't here in our campaign for Session 0. You came about Well, now at this point, you've been with us about halfway through the campaign.
Yeah, pretty much.
So you weren't there with us during session 0, but before session 0 happened is when our character creation happened.
Mm-hmm.
For you, you basically said, "Oh, you guys need a tank. Okay, fine.
Let me be
I'll
that
play a
tank. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you kind of had to pile on your character on top of the class.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a bummer way to do it now that you're kind of getting into it.
Feeling it out.
And now you can see all the different ways that you could have built your character. You know, built your character from the back forward instead of from the forward back.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a bummer for you that now you're finding this out.
Yeah.
But, you know, this is something that, you know, it kind of comes with experience.
It is funny. I did not build the character the way that we're telling you guys I should have built
Right,
it.
yeah.
Because we just threw me into a scenario.
Yeah. So then, you know, we can think about other things like this too. Is as an example, strength. Okay, so in Dungeons and Dragons, strength is going to be your carrying capacity.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then it's going to be your athleticism, and then your ability to cause damage.
Right.
Okay, so we know that. Now let's think about it like this. Okay, so we know that it's your athleticism, right?
Mm-hmm.
And your ability to cause damage. Now, if we look at somebody like Bruce Lee hitting somebody with his fist, and then we think about that as strength, and then we look at somebody like, you know, a professional bodybuilder, Olympic level bodybuilder, that can carry a lot of stuff, their bodies look different.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you have this massive, maybe he's 320 pounds, and if he hits you, it's going to hurt, right? Because he's so strong.
Right, right.
Bruce Lee, if he hits you, it's going to hurt. He is strong, but it's not the same kind of strong, right?
In a way, yeah.
Right.
What are you trying to get to on this one?
Well, what I'm trying to get to is that strength can represent, it can be explained in a lot of different ways. Just because your character
You're
is...
saying just appearances and everything.
Right.
I guess.
Well, just because your character has a high strength score doesn't mean...
They have to be a big...
Exactly.
Okay, alright.
So, Bruce Lee wasn't necessarily very big.
No, but he had a lot of strength, right?
He had a lot of strength, though. He's actually kind of a small guy.
Yeah, he was.
But when he hits you...
Yeah.
Right. So that's one of those things that strength can be represented in a lot of different ways. And, you know, in strength is things like jumping and swimming and things like that. And that's another one of those things that, you know, swimming can look different depending on what's going on. For example, Michael Phelps swimming looks a lot different than a Navy SEAL swimming, but they're both very good swimmers.
Indeed.
Okay.
Yes. Another good analogy.
Right. So the way that they work looks different, but when you translate their raw score to paper, their number would end up being the same.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just strength, right? We can also look. Here's another idea. Okay, maybe you're playing a paladin,
Mm-hmm.
and your paladin's very small, scrawny guy, in fact.
Okay.
Okay, but you're imbued with the strength of your god,
Mm-hmm.
and he grants you the power to hit people with your attacks. We'll represent that with our strength score. Maybe you're a paladin in the game, but your class is fighter.
Yeah.
And all your techniques that you do, you're so good at them because you have your god guiding you along to do these great martial things. Right.
I mean, now there's, you know, subclasses and dual
Yeah,
classes
yeah,
and all that
exactly.
good stuff.
So there's a lot of mechanical things that we can add on that
Mhm.
will help augment what we're doing.
Yes. To make it more realistic, you know, when you're
Right.
doing
We can have the
the actual
mechanics.
stats.
We can have the mechanics fit our idea.
Right, right.
Maybe maybe it's none of those. This is a role-playing game where we can do a lot of really wacky stuff,
Yeah.
right? So
It's open.
maybe when we attack, it's not even our character that's attacking.
What?
Yeah, here
Okay,
we go.
come on with
Here we
this.
go.
What kind
Okay.
of opie idea is
Okay,
this?
So here we go. Maybe when our character attacks, our character has a djinn.
Okay.
Okay, so that djinn or genie,
This reminds me of Golden Sun.
yeah. So the djinn or genie,
Good game.
your character is just standing there. Okay, somebody attacks you, and your djinn blocks the attack.
Or Pokemon.
Really?
I mean,
Really?
you could have
Yeah.
a Pokemon character.
Your djinn blocks the attack.
Right.
And then you command your djinn to attack somebody, and that's where the damage comes from.
Okay.
So your character never even picks up a sword. Your character just says, "Hey, hit this guy," and a sword comes out from behind you.
And then I guess your stats would transfer over to the Jin stats. Right. I guess
Well, that part of it you could work out with your DM however you
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
have it,
yeah.
but so you could have this fighter, or you could have this character who is being protected by a djinn, but mechanically, your character is a fighter.
She said I sound country as hell.
You are country as hell. You are country as hell. That's why. So how that's the kind of thing we want to think about when we're, and that goes back again to like we were talking about before, is have the idea for your character before you even sit down at the table.
Yeah.
Because now you can even extend that to, you have a whole party of people that are all just kind of normal people. But along the way, each of them found a lamp or a trinket or a bauble or whatever it is, and those trinkets and baubles and lamps are what manifest these djinns, and each one of these djinns has different energies and different abilities that they can do. My djinn can't cast any spells. He only
Like
hits
very
things with
physical.
swords.
Right. Okay.
Your djinn can heal things. This other guy's djinn can manifest fire.
Okay.
You know,
So
so
this is getting crazy.
right, yeah,
Pretty cool though.
right.
Stuff
So-
I never thought about.
Right, and a lot of people won't. And this is the kind of things that you won't think about if when you sit down at the table and open the book and you see,
You're
oh,
right.
this
you,
is what a fighter
you wouldn't
is.
even get close.
Why
to
would
that.
you even, okay,
Why would you bother? You're just like, okay, I want fighter.
this is what a fighter is.
Yeah.
Flips,
Oh, it says I
okay,
need strength,
Boom,
so I'll get
done.
strength. You know,
there you go.
and then you're done, and you're like, oh, I guess I'm just playing this.
Right,
What does he look like? I don't know.
Yeah, who
He's
cares?
got a beard.
right. But now, before we even gotten that far, what we've done is we said, okay, our character is life linked to this djinn, and I command this djinn. He is essentially, a djinn is subservient to the person that holds the whatever trinket.
I
it
mean,
is.
you could even go as far as to say you feel each other's pain and shit,
Yeah,
if you want
exactly,
to.
yeah.
You know.
And we can. There's all sorts of different directions we can go with that. But the whole point of it is to think about things before it ever even gets,
Mhm.
before you ever even open the book.
Yeah.
And doing something like this would be great for the DM as well. Okay, if I had one of my characters or one of my players come to me and they said, "Hey, I have this idea for a fighter, and it's kind of unconventional, but what I want to do is I want to have, every time I attack something, I have a beast aspect that surrounds me and guides me when I fight."
Mm. You know who I'm thinking of? Udyr
Yeah,
from League of Legends.
yeah, absolutely, yes,
There's like Beast.
yeah. But
Yeah.
no matter what, it's always the same guy.
Yeah, it's still the same
Right.
guy, but he's pulling that energy like,
Yeah.
ah!
So he attacks, and a thing happens.
Yeah,
Now, mechanically, he can just be a fighter. I swing my sword, and it does slashing damage. mechanically is what
Mhm.
happens.
Mhm.
However, thematically, I can have adopted the aspect of an owlbear,
Some kind of druidish.
and when I slash, it's my claws that are
Right,
coming down
right.
at you.
And not just a hand,
Right.
you know.
And this is one of those things that it's just like you said. Udir is a great example. Now, if we before we sit down at the table, if we say, "Hey, I want to be Udir,"
Right, and that's perfectly acceptable.
yeah, and then the DM would say, "Okay, well, tell me what it is that you're wanting to do."
Mm-hmm.
Now, knee jerk reaction would be, "Well, okay, druid," because they get shape shifting,
Right, right,
but
right.
maybe you don't necessarily want all that magic aspect to your character.
Just more of a fighter.
You just want to be a martial character that you get in there and you get physical with things. Okay, cool.
But then make the way he
Exactly.
performs.
Everything that he does is manifested through
Right.
those spirits that
Yeah.
he carries with him.
Yeah, very
Um,
customizable, however you want to do it.
Yes, and that's a lot of it, And then even when you sit down and you're doing things at the table, what you would do is you're in some sort of negotiations with somebody else, and you're playing this Udir character.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the spirit is inside of you and whispering to you, "Hey, I have this ancient knowledge." So now you have this fighter with pretty good intelligence, but your intelligence is a representation of the spirit's knowledge.
Okay.
And it's the spirit that's whispering things for you to say to other people.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Right, right.
Right. Okay.
And these are the kind of things that if your first thing you do when you sit down to create your character is open the book and you see, oh, well, that's what a rogue is.
Yeah, I guess I'll just be sneaking.
I'll be a rogue.
Oh, I might shoot a crossbow every now and then.
I'm gonna play Hamburglar
Right.
with the dagger.
Whereas you could be a rogue that fights for justice.
Right.
You don't have to be stealing all the time.
Right. Absolutely. Yes.
You could be a noble rogue,
Right.
like completely legitimately. Legitimately.
I'm going to get some more water.
Okay.
While I'm doing this. What else are you interested in? What else do you want to talk about here?
I know, right? Well, let's see if there's any questions I had in general. I think just I kind of want to go through a turn, but not a full turn, not like an actual turn.
We're not quite ready for that, I think.
No. All right, you're probably right. Yeah, you're probably right. And plus, tomorrow people can see plenty of turns. Plenty of turns. My hair is fucking wild to the side.
Looks great.
Hats. Hats. Yeah. I could wear a hat. I don't like hats.
That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, to know just how a character's supposed to be built, as far as like, you finally have your idea and you're like, okay, I want to go the fighter route. The book's going to tell you, okay, you should probably use strength.
Sure.
You're not going to get far without strength, and constitution. You need life. So, I mean, those are just kind of how you kind of need to do it, like we were talking about earlier, or you're not going to make it very far.
Right.
So.
But here's one of those things that, this is one of the reasons why I said think about the way that these skills are manifested differently. Okay. So we still want to role play this character. We want to play this fighter. He's very charismatic. And we want him to be a fighter. We don't want him to be not a fighter. Okay.
Right.
So, but what does that really mean? Okay, so let's think about this. We're a knights and swords and horseback kind of guy, and we have this charismatic fighter. Okay. How about a bard?
For fighter? Maybe.
Okay. So let's think about this. If you are in the military and you have a leader and he's telling people, hey, I need you to do this, I need you to do this, go over here, do this thing, go over there, do that thing. what is the guiding ability, or the commonality that all these leaders have?
Confidence?
They have confidence. Does absolutely play into it. It's their charisma.
Charisma, right?
Leaders have charisma.
Right, okay.
Mechanically, bards in D&D have really high charisma scores.
Okay.
So
I didn't realize that.
yeah, so I'm creating a bard, but my bard is not just a playing violin or flute.
Yeah.
My bard is the guy that stands in front of the troops and bolsters their confidence and gets them out there and ready to kill the enemy.
Like the morale and all that.
He boosts the morale of the troops and sends them off to battle. He's a bard.
Okay.
But
I can see that.
so mechanically he's a bard. Thematically, he's a general.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
or if we're starting at level 1, he's a lieutenant.
Yeah. Can't be a general.
Yeah. He can't be a general yet, but
Not level
eventually,
one, yeah.
eventually he can be.
He's in training.
He's in training still. And in this case, his charisma would represent his confidence in the things that he's telling his troops.
Mm-hmm.
It would represent the time that he spent learning these tactics in a war academy. It could represent, any number of things. Just having rank, for example. Think about when you were still in the military and you got promoted to that next level. Your chest kind of swelled up. You kind of walked a little bit straighter, a little bit, right?
A little bit more money.
Yeah. So you get a little bit more money in your pocket, going
Yeah.
dang-a-lang-a-lang.
I remember.
So you start strutting a little bit, and that's how we represent rank for this bard who is a general. The higher rank he gets, the higher level he gets, the higher rank he gets. Now we're level 5. Congratulations, Captain.
Right.
Now we're level 7. Hey, sir, Colonel.
Yeah, Colonel.
Yeah.
Right. Just kind of play it in however you want
Yeah,
to.
exactly. So as he gets higher level,
Mhm.
his rank grows.
That's cool.
Yeah. So it's a different way to think about the things that we already have in the game. Because we use players and GMs, we use the levels as a tool for us. It's meta knowledge. Okay? The players or the characters in that world, they understand that when they see a dragon, hey, we are not experienced enough to handle this shit.
Some people don't realize that.
Okay. Right. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
They were like, hey, a dragon!
Yeah.
We're only level 1. We can
Right.
tag him. There's
Right.
7 of us.
Yeah. The DM would
No!
never DM would never throw anything like that at us, right?
Mm.
Okay, right. But the
Hey, kitty cat. Actually, it's kind of blurry. I might have to look into that.
maybe we got something on the screen.
Endings.
Ask your wife if it looks blurry.
Does it look kind of blurry? Just breathe. Is it blurry? Actually, I think it was the. Never mind. It looks fine.
Okay. So you messed up my whole train of thought.
I know. I messed it up.
And I don't
We
appreciate
were talking about a. Oh man. What have we done? Stick boy.
it. There it is. Stick says it doesn't look blurry, so it doesn't look blurry.
Word.
Okay. So we were talking about the bard being a general, going up rank.
I'm just saying how. You don't have to be a straight fighter.
Sure.
You know.
Now, if we keep going and we keep pushing this general route, this bard as a general. Okay.
Very charismatic. Yeah.
Right. So the bard gets skills that let them do special things, unique things. Okay. Now, all of this can be still represented without ever saying, "Hey, my general casts a spell." Okay. Now the bards get things like dissonant whispers. They get another one that I can't
I
remember.
don't know anything about bards.
Okay, well they get really cool spells.
Okay.
A lot of their spells, they either bolster the confidence of their allies or reduce the morale
Like an
of
aura?
their enemies.
Or is it when they play their songs?
It's when they play their songs, but we're not.
But you don't
song,
have to
we're
say.
not a fluter. We're not
Right.
playing a fluter. So instead of us
It's
playing,
just
a
more
fluter,
like your presence, I guess.
Right. So what we do is when we go and we use dissonant whispers on an enemy, and we're the general played as a bard. What we're doing is we're saying, hey, look, I got 10,000 dudes that's ready to kill you right now. You know, there's a SWAT.
What say
team.
you?
There's a SWAT team hanging from the skylights.
Yeah.
And it
You're
messes-
surrounded.
Right. And it messes with their head.
Mhm.
So what happens then is mechanically we'll do whatever the dissonant whisper spell says.
And it really does depend on how you say, like what I was just doing, like,
Yeah.
you know,
and
all those different
then-
things that I was saying.
And then again, bards get things where they can heal their allies. Yeah. So, you know, kind of the way I think about something like that is you get hurt in basic training, or you're out on a mission and you get hurt.
Yeah.
And the drill sergeant comes up to you and he tells you,
Drink water.
Drink water. Rub some dirt on it. Walk it off. Take a
Drink
knee.
water. Yeah.
And it shouldn't work.
But it does.
It does.
Damn it.
Right?
Yeah.
It works. He tells you drink water and you say, all right, we drank some water. Now, all of a sudden, this broken toe that I have doesn't hurt so bad.
Oh, it's a flautist, not a flutist. Anyway, Stick Boy wanted to, correct us.
All right.
There it is.
There it is.
All right.
We got it marked on the page.
Corrected.
Right. It's marked on the page now. So, in any case, what we've done now is we've given a thematic reason for every single thing that this bard can do, that none of it has to be a guitar or a flute or a stringed instrument or
Right,
whatever. We
completely
don't have
changed
to do any of it.
Based
Now,
on
now he's a martial character.
the idea.
And the whole thing that we came up with the idea for the character before we ever put
Yeah.
stats on the page.
Like, had you not done that, I guarantee you nobody would have built a bard like that. At
Right,
all.
and
You know what
it's-
I mean? By looking at the
No,
books.
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Not even close.
There's other things that we can do with it too. So, watch this. A salesman comes to your door,
Uh-huh.
and he's a very good salesman. He can get you to buy anything he wants to.
Doesn't accept no.
Does not accept no. You just bought his thing and you didn't even want it in the first place. That's a bard.
Right.
And he never even played a song. But
Okay.
never played a song for you. But
Right,
what he
right.
does is he gets you worked up in such a way that you have no other choice but to buy into what he's telling you. So this is the same thing as, you know, the idea behind using the general as the bard. Okay, so we have this, you know, larger than life personality, a celebrity,
Mm-hmm.
Jerry Springer.
Okay.
Even okay, we have a Jerry Springer or a Jerry. What's he doing when he gets all these people to chant Jerry, Jerry? Oh, we have your sister and your other sister, and guess what? They're both having your baby, and you didn't even know that you were having sex with
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
And then they start fighting on stage because he whipped them up into a frenzy, and now they're all fighting, and they didn't even want to in the first place. This is what bards do. Bards get people to fight each other. They can do that kind of stuff. The bards can say, they can slow down the you know, talking, and they can mellow out their words. And these people on the show, they start crying. The talk show people, the people sitting on the couch, they start crying. Same thing. Or they're crying about something, and you have Dr. Phil going, "You're an idiot. Okay, let's get this shit together." It's the same thing. You could play a bard as a talk show character. Absolutely, 100%. You could do it. You know, it would just be this larger than life personality that when he enters the whatever area you're in, it's just his presence that gets things going. So you're mechanically you're casting these spells,
Yeah.
but thematically you're just getting people whipped up and flustered and they can't focus and then it's messing up their spells. Or alternatively, you have your allies that you're like, yeah, you can, really do this great thing, kind of like a Tony Robbins. And, think about how, he's one of those, motivational speaker guys.
Okay.
That's what the bards are. They're motivational speakers for their allies, and they're demotivational speakers for the enemy.
Okay, so let's say you built a bard that was exactly like that, not a fluter and all that stuff. It's just presence.
Mm-hmm.
Would you force the bard to explain exactly what he's doing, or would you let him just simply roll if he wanted to, or whatever?
So, if the person was rolling up that character and they said, hey, I want to be this TV personality bard, and every time I do a thing, thematically it's this, but mechanically it's this spell. Maybe the first time they do it, I would say, yeah, go ahead and explain it.
Well, let's see how it works out, I guess, probably.
Well, because not only would it be fun for the person playing it, but then everybody else at the table would get a chance to see, oh, this person's playing the bard, so when he, gets me whipped up and ready to fight somebody, he's like, talk.
That's
Excuse me. So what he's doing is he's getting people whipped up and ready to fight somebody or whatever. So maybe the first time, but after the first time, it doesn't need to be explained again. Maybe we can even have a cheat sheet. Maybe rename all of the spells that the bard is using
to whatever you want, yeah.
To whatever would make sense thematically.
Okay. I meant more so in like a specific scenario. Let's say, for instance, like in our thing, when Starstorm went in front of that general.
Yes.
Okay. Let's say that was the bard going in front of that general
Okay.
instead. Would you want that bard to say specifically what he's saying to that guy to make it more real, or would you like him to just say, I want to roll for intimidation?
Okay. So here's the thing about this is...
Or persuasion.
Yes. So if the player says, I roll persuasion at this creature, that doesn't give me a lot to work with as a DM. So behind the screen, maybe the check started off as a 12. Pretty easy check for a charisma-based character, a 12. At a 12, so the idea behind it is you should succeed on a check if you roll a 10. Okay. On your d20, you should succeed on the check if you roll a 10. For a medium-ish check.
Okay.
Right? So if the check is 12 and you roll a 10, you only need a score of 2 in that category.
Okay.
Okay. So we have that down. So maybe behind the screen, I said, okay, this is a 12 check. Now somebody like Starstorm, who probably her persuasion is probably a plus 7 or 8.
Okay.
It's huge.
It's huge,
right?
really,
Yeah.
for real. Okay.
It really is huge. Now, for her to get a 12, she'd only have to roll a 4.
Right, 'cause she has so many
That's
pluses.
Nothing.
Additions,
right?
yeah.
That's nothing. But if she goes up to the Orc General and she says, well, I roll persuasion at this Orc General. Well, if that's what you're doing and you're not telling me what you're doing, now the roll, I'm going to set the check to 18, 20, 19, whatever. Now it just became a very difficult check. Whereas before you could have said, hey, this is what I do. And at that point, I can look at the score because I keep the matrix of everybody's scores on the back of the DM screen. I can look at it and say, well, this person has like a plus 9 in this category. I'm not going to force this person to roll for this. That's silly.
They explained exactly what they were doing.
They said that
they have the stats.
That's it.
They do it.
And something else that, you never want to have a player roll something if you don't want for there to be a chance for them to fail. Okay, So
Like in a death situation? Like
no.
death.
Okay. So let's go back to this example of the bard meeting up with the orc general. Okay.
Mhm.
They meet each other. Now, if the bard explains their actions in such a way that there is no way that what that bard said could possibly fail, it is then the DM's responsibility to not ask for a roll. Because even if it's ridiculously low chance for it to fail, if you ask for a roll, they're going to fail it.
It's very possible.
Because it's Murphy's Law then at that
Right.
point, right? So, you want to save rolls for things that, if it fails, there is a consequence. And it's something that, hey, if I ask this person to roll this and something negative happens, that's okay.
Like, it's not the end of the world.
Right. However,
some DMs don't think like that.
right, they say, oh, you just did something that lines up with persuasion, roll a persuasion check.
Right. Oh, you failed? Well, he's coming at your face now. You know?
Right. So, if
with an axe.
now if a player comes and they say, hey, my whether you say I do this, my character does this, or they just speak directly in character, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. People are comfortable with different levels of that kind of game interaction, and that's fine. It really doesn't matter, not realistically. So the player describes their actions, and they do a great job. And if the DM says, okay, make a roll, basically what you're saying to that character was, well, what you just said wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
Okay. So, kind of, yeah. Unless you're doing something so very outlandish.
It's like, okay, roll for that.
So if you're playing a high strength character and you see, oh, there's a boulder rolling down the hill, and
Try to stop it.
I'm going to try to stop it.
Oh God.
I use athletics to try to stop it. Now, we can do this a couple different ways.
Yeah, you could. You could just brute strength, or you could tool. You could use some tools.
Okay, there we go. Now we're thinking, right?
Yeah.
So, now instead of my high strength character just seeing this boulder come down and grab it.
Yeah. Kamehameha.
Right. Yeah. Okay, now instead of that, what if we have this high strength character get another boulder? This is still the strength check. They get another huge rock, and they wing it at the boulder in such a way, the boulder that's running down the hill, they wing that rock at the boulder in such a way that it smashes that boulder running down the hill and busts it up before it gets to the party.
Right.
Or they pull a hammer from their bag and, chunk it at that boulder coming down the hill in such a way that it smashes that
Instead
boulder.
of trying to be like He-Man and just
Now,
possibly get ran over by
Now, the difference between the two is this. Is the strength character that tried to grab that boulder rolling down the hill, that is the character or the player that said, I roll a strength check at that boulder.
Right.
That's what they've done. They've rolled the strength check at the boulder. And the DM said, alright, you need like a 20 on this roll.
Right.
Fuck it. Okay. Now, the player that was clever with their skill check, they said, okay, I reach into my bag and I grab this hammer and I wing it and I try to knock the boulder off course so that it's not hitting us. Or the player that grabbed a huge rock off the ground, they say, okay, I'm going to throw this and try to calculate so that the boulder hits that rock and, launches the rock up over us as it's rolling down the hill.
Oh, yeah.
Now, yeah.
It's more specific on what you're actually
Right.
trying to do.
So now the DM can say, well, okay. So now instead of the check being
so high.
so
because
high,
you're just
now it's not
face to
17.
face with a boulder.
Yeah. Now you are doing something relating to strength, but you're doing something clever, and it matches what your character's doing. So we can go back to the blacksmith sorcerer.
Okay.
Okay. So the blacksmith sorcerer, his instincts, even if he has a high strength, his instincts aren't going to be grab this boulder.
Mhm.
His instincts are going to be use a tool to fix this situation.
Right.
So even though you have the high strength, your high strength is explained by grabbing this tool and hitting the boulder off course so it doesn't hit your allies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it matches. Right?
No, I completely agree with that. That's awesome. Much more clever.
Right, and now the DM can say, well, now you've done something. You didn't just roll strength at the boulder. You've actually done something now. So now that you're actually doing something, now I don't have to give you a 20 for this check.
Yeah.
I can make this check a 15, 12, 13.
Right.
Who cares? Doesn't matter.
And for something like that, I think you would want to just make the roll. It can't just be like, oh, you do it, you know, 'cause that's kind of big. That's something that's...
Although you could.
You could.
Let's say you had a character that they had a natural, maybe they have a 20 strength,
right?
and then they had
in that case
double proficiency in athletics,
right?
So that's going to give them, depending on their level, somewhere between like a 5 and a
like even if they roll a 2,
it would be somewhere between a 9 and like a 15 or even higher.
Right.
It's going to be huge, their score.
True.
So at that point, you can just say, yes, you described your action.
Yeah, you described it well enough to where it's like...
And it happens. Why wouldn't it?
That's your score? Okay.
Yes.
It
Why wouldn't it happen?
Right. Now explain how it happened.
Yes.
To the group. You know, and that's fun.
However,
that's a big part. That's a fun part. The role playing and explaining what you're doing.
If you just say, well, I roll strength at this thing, then you say, okay, I get that your character's strong, but this thing's coming down and it's going to hurt you.
It's got a lot of momentum.
Yeah.
You're not a god.
Right.
You're mortal. It's alright, that's what we're doing, sweetheart. You don't like the talking, I know.
Why doesn't she like talking?
Because it's a child. A 6-year-old.
Yeah, I guess I don't blame her.
So how should we
Maybe
do interaction?
Maybe if we had like fuzzy masks on, like bears. Maybe if we had bear masks on when we did so maybe she would like it.
Maybe we should dress up next time.
I'm not doing that.
You don't want to LARP?
No.
I had somebody ask me if this is like LARPing.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, we don't dress up. But do you?
I like sitting. You can't carry snacks with you as easily when you're LARPing.
I know.
It's just, it's inconvenient.
LARPers.
It's too much work.
I don't hate LARPers though. Like, it's kind of cool.
It's fine. It seems like a lot of effort.
It's a little bit too much effort for what they do and whatnot.
I mean, I'm sure it's a blast, but golly, that seems like a lot.
She's a dork like her dad.
Her dad is a dork.
Yes, please. What
to
is
the
that?
Dressing up?
What is that in relation to? The yes, please. Sometimes we don't catch our chat with what you type.
I think your wife wants to see us dress up.
Stop saying yes. What do you mean yes? Yes in relation to what?
What I just said.
Us dressing up?
Yeah. She wants to see us dress up.
Role play.
She wants to. Yeah, she wants us to dress up and role play.
Ugh. Some people do like to see that though. But you're a DM. You're the DM's like the referee.
The DM is also the dungeon master.
I mean, you don't have to. You could just be like, you could look however you want. You don't have to dress up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could have a wizard's hat. You could have a
leather straps.
Jesus. Yeah.
Leather mask.
Ooh.
Yeah. With zipper over the mouth.
Oh man, too much. Oh, just breathe. Don't be jealous.
I told you.
Oh man.
We know where her mind is. So now I think this is why your wife encourages you to come role play. This is what she fantasizes you doing.
Oh man, she thinks that we just come over here and nerd out completely.
She thinks you dress up and do that kind of role play stuff.
I mean, we could, but maybe in the future.
I mean, if we throw some of the plastic sheets down in the basement, we could do all kinds of stuff.
Okay. You're crazy.
Okay, so now I know that you haven't seen the Avatar show,
right?
But going back to that, there's still like a lot of really cool stuff that we can do with if we take that idea and kind of push that forward. Okay.
Right.
So one thing that I like is the idea that of our blacksmith sorcerer. Now, when the blacksmith sorcerer, when he manifests a spell, there's no reason that his spells should look like somebody else's spells.
Okay.
Okay. So our blacksmith sorcerer casts a firebolt. There is no reason why his firebolt should look like everybody else's, because that's just not who he is.
Right.
Okay. So we're gonna put his flavor, his character flavor into it. So now instead of just
big hammer going towards somebody.
there you go.
Oh.
Yeah, he launches a huge hammer at somebody. Maybe he
Or
gets
even
the.
spin it around and
There's another spell that I wish I could remember the name, but it's like a rain of fire spell, something like that. I don't ever get a chance to play too much, so I don't.
know
really,
that's very unfortunate.
It is. But it's fine. But maybe when your sorcerer casts this rain of fire spell, what he's actually doing is manifesting little fire daggers that drop from the sky, because that's what he's familiar with. That's what he knows, and it fits in with our character. And the way that our
you could do that instead of
blacksmith
it
sorcerer
coming from you, it rains down.
But maybe we still manifest it through that kata that we were talking about, that avatar style kata. He does like his kick up in the air, and he kicks a tiny little flame dagger up in the air, and when the flame dagger comes back down, it splits up and
However you want to do it,
right. So we're adding more flavor, and we're adding reasons why they're doing these things.
Reasonable flavor.
Yes.
Reasonable flavor.
And we can extend this to all sorts of other things too, where it doesn't just have to be that. Druid is another one, because of their shape-shifting ability that lends us to the possibility of doing all sorts of different things when they're doing attacks or spells. Druid is a fun class because they can.
I haven't messed with Druid much.
So, Druid gets they get wild shape, and that lets them change into a bear or a panther or whatever.
Now, do they get that at level 1?
I wish I could tell you.
Okay. All right.
We can look at it later and find out
Right.
for sure. But the thing about it is, just because you're mechanically you're changing into a bear, it doesn't mean has to be what it is that you're doing.
Yeah, you could change into some other.
You don't have to change.
You don't even have to change.
You don't have to change into anything.
Right. Like we were talking with Udir earlier.
Sure. Yeah. Exactly. Just like Udir. Or, wasn't a very good movie, but they did have a cool thing in it. Did you get to see Daredevil? Not the show, the movie one with Jennifer Forehead Gardner.
No, I didn't.
Okay. So.
But I know who Daredevil is.
Okay, so or maybe it was the Elektra movie. Which movie it was in is not super important. What's more important is what was happening is this person in the movie had all these cool tattoos all over them.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever they would do stuff, these tattoos would move and come to life. And for example, speaking of the wild shape, maybe you have like a dragon tattoo around your chest, and your dragon tattoo comes to life, and it, comes over your mouth, and now you can breathe fire.
Cool.
Maybe
maybe
you're a wizard, and that's where all of your spells come from. Your body is just tattooed in spells.
That's kind of cool.
Every time you cast a spell, these tattoos move around and come from your hands or your mouth or your eyes or wherever, and that's where your spells
and
come
as you're leveling up, you're getting tats, more and more ink. That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, maybe that's where that stuff comes from.
Like
so, again, the whole idea and this goes back to, again, coming up with the idea of the character before you ever even open the book. Because if you look at what it says in the book about wizards, in the book it says wizards read books and they get spells from books.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. But maybe that spell that you got from the book, what you're really doing is you're looking at a pattern for a new tattoo from your book. And you're applying that new tattoo to your skin.
Right.
You know, and this is another thing is, wizards have a number of spells that they can cast per day.
Right.
And you're having to refresh these tattoos on your skin as a way to justify, oh, well, I only prepared these tattoos for the day, and I only have so much room on my body for these tattoos, so I can only have so many at a time.
Yeah.
So this is another way that we can say, hey, look, the mechanics of this thing explain the flavor of the character. They explain the theme of this character in a neat way, but it also blends in with the world, and it's something that can like really legitimately happen, right? How do we get on to that? I think that was your fault.
It's probably my fault. Well, we're talking about some good stuff.
In general, though, kind of what we're talking about is just coming up with how things happen before you even start looking at the mechanics, right? Okay, now here's another thing too, is now it's time to fight something, okay?
Sure.
Now, when you watch a movie or you're reading a book, it's a lot different from a video game. Okay, in a video game, when you press the A button, your character does this thing.
Yeah.
Okay, if in an RPG, when you select the attack command, your character does this thing.
Right.
Even the multiplayer RPGs, if you press attack, you're doing this. You know. Now, in a movie or a book, you very rarely see that. Okay, now, I have a sort of philosophy when it comes to D&D about that, okay, and it's this, is most of the time when your character is there in front of an enemy, they don't just stand there. We're talking about in Dungeons and Dragons. You're not just standing in front of the enemy waiting for them to do something. You're actively hitting back and forth, doing blocks and parries.
Even though you do everything in turns,
yes.
In reality, it doesn't look like that.
Off turn, when it's not your turn, you're just going back and forth, blocking and swinging at the other person.
Right.
When it is your turn, this is your chance. You just found an opening in their guard. Now you're going to try to sneak that sword in there. So when you're sneaking that sword in there, you're not just swinging your sword. Maybe you're kicking their foot out to expose their neck so you can swing at their neck.
So you're saying actually, when you're telling the DM, instead of just saying, I make an attack roll, like I usually do,
yes,
you're saying you could actually make your attack more specific, exactly what you're doing with that attack.
And there's different ways that you can do it too.
For that situation.
Right. So you can say, hey, you know, I'm in front of this orc and I'm fighting this orc. I'm gonna, you know, catch the light with my shield, and then while the light is flashed in front of his eyes, I'm gonna belt him in the nose with the hilt of my sword. It's an attack that he wouldn't expect. Now, mechanically, you might not get anything from it from the GM. Right. Maybe the GM will just say, hey, it worked, roll your attack. Your attack was good enough that it explained how you were able to overcome that enemy's 20 AC. Because you flipped the light in his eyes, blinded him, and then you busted him in the nose.
Okay.
So in that, I think that martial characters get a lot more freedom in the attacks that they can do, unless you're creative with your spells. Like our blacksmith sorcerer that can, okay, this time he throws a hammer, but maybe, how about if we think of our sorcerer as more of a Green Lantern?
Okay.
So every time he does a spell, he's making a construct. Okay?
Yeah.
So now every time he does a spell, it's a construct. So you get to you get to impose your character's personality in every spell that he does.
See, that would be kind of cool.
Right, right. So you can even have that be your character. Your character found a magical ring that is imprinted with magical abilities, and that's where all your wizard's powers come from.
And then adjust
Your
the
wizard,
spells that are in the
Your
book.
wizard is a Green Lantern.
Yeah.
And those spells that are in the book are the ways that you manifest that.
And you can
your
change
Green
the
Lantern
flavor
power.
for every single one of
There you
them.
go. And every time you cast Fireball, it can look different.
Yeah, it can. Yeah, it can.
And it
look
can be
literally different.
And it can be completely different every single time. And you can even say, okay, well, we're fighting fishmen this time.
Yeah.
So now my Fireball looks like a huge net that drops over and wraps around the fishmen.
They see it. Ah!
Yeah, they're like, oh no,
Not the nets.
not the nets.
Don't bring out the nets.
Not the nets. Maybe you're fighting a group of Minotaur, and you cast Fireball, and now maybe this time your Fireball construct is cattle prod.
Yeah.
That comes down. Right. You know.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Right. It is ridiculous, but it's another way.
Right.
And you would never get
For
to
flavor.
get to that level unless you had the idea for the character
Yeah.
before you even went in the book.
That is so true.
You know, you sit down to play D&D and you tell the DM, I want to play Guy Gardner. I want to play.
Yeah.
I want to be a Green Lantern.
Yeah. I want
at
my
your
character to
table.
be just like him.
I want to be a Green Lantern at your table, and the DM says, "All right, cool, you're a wizard now.
Or create your own spaghetti monster.
Yeah, do whatever." But that's the whole thing of coming up with the idea for the character before you even hit the table. Speaking about comic books, there is a character in the Justice League, Martian Manhunter. Yes. Yeah.
All right.
He can shapeshift, and he's
Okay.
got some other pretty neat powers. He can change the density of his body and what. It doesn't matter. What does matter is that you could play that character in Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Okay. So what you do is you go to your DM and you say, hey, I want to play Martian Manhunter. And the DM says, come on now. And you say, well, look, he's got, shape-shifting abilities. He can do some kind of he can fly a little bit. He can do these different kinds of things. This is what he can do. You tell your DM, can we find a class that is close to this?
I think you could.
You can. And my initial reaction to that would be to take enough druid to get the shape-shifting, and then beyond that,
The
you
flying
either
would be
do-
like a warlock or.
you could do warlock. I think that druids might eventually get fly.
Oh, really?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't ever get to
Druid.
play in a game.
I know.
So,
We're just gonna have to put you in.
yeah.
You're gonna have to do both.
Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play.
But that's kind of messed up because you see all the behind the scenes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you'd be more like an NPC
maybe
than
I'll
an
just
actual.
switch back and forth. When it's my turn to roll, I'll step on the other.
Oh
side.
yeah, because you wouldn't know anything. Yeah.
But maybe you just play. You have a couple levels in druid so that you get your good shape shifting stuff, and then beyond that, then you go and get the stuff for the more martial type.
Advanced. Or okay.
Sure, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you build just about anything. But yeah.
Something else about character creation.
Yeah.
Everything doesn't have to be a tragic backstory. That is a lot of players' initial reaction when you say, okay, come up with the backstory.
It is true.
And then they say, okay, my backstory is I'm an orphan, or I have amnesia, I resorbed my twin in the fetus, or in utero.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I resorbed my twin in utero, and I'm the only one left. And,
God.
yeah, like these.
I sucked all the resources from my twin.
Yes. So, not every backstory has to be tragic, though. And that's actually something that can give the character a reason to go out and adventure.
Mine was both tragic and good.
Well,
It was noble, ended up tragic.
but you didn't know that.
Right.
That wasn't part of your backstory.
No, it just kind of happened.
It happened because you had just enough in your backstory to say, hey, this is kind of what's going on. And then from there, then you gave me as the DM the tools to say, okay, well, that's great. Now I know where you're from, but you really haven't filled in the blanks.
Right.
So then that gives me some tools that I can use to say, well, hey, you haven't been there for a while. Now this is going on while you've been away.
Oh, and Opie loved putting me on the spot because we
yeah.
went back to my homeland, and he's like, "So, Atmanos, which is my character name, you've been here before. What does this main throne room look like? Go ahead and explain it to the other characters at the table." And I was like,
if I remember correctly, it looked like a kiss from the rose on the grave.
"A seal."
It looked like a seal.
It's a good song.
It is.
No. Remember it had the big organ and everything?
Yeah.
And, anyway.
But no, that's something that's great because...
Good kiss from...
But, that was something that, you could have built all of that crazy stuff into your backstory, but then it's all locked in.
Right.
But since it wasn't locked in during the creation of your character, when it gets to that stage in your character's spotlight, now you can go and say, well, what would be neat here? Okay, the organ.
Yeah.
That would be neat.
I thought it was cool.
Yeah, big old organ.
Yeah.
Maybe music has some sort of significance in your kingdom, and that's why there's an organ in the throne room, or maybe your parents had some affinity to it.
Probably think
There's
of
a
some
million,
more. Yeah.
or maybe there's a bard that their chosen musical instrument is the organ. So they're not much of a roaming bard, not typical bards that you would see.
My bard.
Yeah, but
You stay at the castle bard.
maybe somebody can cast miniaturize on the organ so you can carry their own.
Oh wow! Wow. Is that a thing?
Maybe.
You can
why
make
not?
make it a thing.
It's magic.
Maximize and minimize.
When weird and wacky things happen, the easiest way to explain any of it is just because magic.
Yeah, magic, guys.
That's why.
Duh, it's magic.
Why is this thing happening? Because magic.
It's magic.
Stop. Yeah, that's why it's happening.
Duh.
Because magic. But there's a lot of things you can do. Okay. Now, if we keep on with this kind of like alternate idea of different things that we can do for characters, okay, different ways that we can explain things that happen. What that does is that frees us up to come up with these weird, crazy, quirky ideas for a character before we even get to the table. Okay. How about Rumble?
From League?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I know what you're talking about.
I know you know.
So you're saying if I were to build Rumble in D&D?
Well, explain what Rumble is, first of all.
All right,
let's get an idea of
Rumble,
what Rumble
is this little gnomish like character, about
So,
a foot and a half tall.
The character is...
a halfling, I guess you could say.
No. But I mean, the character is not the whole...
Oh, right. I was getting to that. So he's this little gnome that's actually riding
Mm-hmm.
a machine.
Sure.
Is it?
Yeah.
It can be a machine. It doesn't have to be a machine.
Right.
He's riding like something.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, he's riding. Yeah, I think it is always a machine on Rumble, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Nunu was the other one I was thinking of.
Sure.
Anyway, yeah. So how would that be in DM?
Well,
or D&D?
keep talking out what he does.
All right. So he's like this little dude that's driving a walking machine, more like a mech. And this little mech can shoot out flames in a cone.
Mm-hmm.
He can. He has a little boost of speed, but he also gets like an empowered shield when he does this boost of speed. He also has. He can shoot out two little like, kind of like missiles or whatever, like, and they deal damage and slow the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And then he has his ultimate, which is this like thick, like line of just fire and stuff coming up from the ground, and it deals a massive amount of damage and slows them. Yeah, so that's his main four abilities.
So, if Rumble were out of his mecha suit,
He wouldn't be much.
not much, right?
Right.
But as Rumble is getting stronger as the game progresses, he gets more attachments to his mecha suit.
Sure.
And those new attachments that he gets allow him to do other things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other options.
Sure. So let's think about what Rumble could be.
Yeah.
Could Rumble be a fighter?
Absolutely.
Okay. And so, when Rumble is, now let's say you're playing Rumble, the fighter.
Mm-hmm.
Your class is fighter and you're playing Rumble. When you do something, how would you explain the things that are happening? Because now it's not you, it's not Rumble that's making
you
the
could
attack.
you could do a fighter with all the strength and stuff,
Sure.
but I think since he has more like
Well, let's just do this. Let's just look at one class at a time.
okay, so
So-
you're just saying like the different
Mm-hmm.
variants.
Right.
So if I wanted to make him a fighter,
If you're being fighter version Rumble.
yeah, I think I would just kind of for his flame that kind of comes out.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would just have it more so, not so flamey, and maybe just a barrage of fists, maybe, if you wanted to.
No, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, just like.
Absolutely. Or if not fist, maybe a spear.
Yeah, maybe legs or even a.
Yeah.
And then for the missiles, instead of actual missiles, it could be like throwing javelins.
Awesome.
2 javelins that you throw in
Right.
one succession.
Right. Well, fighters get double attack.
Yeah,
So,
there you go.
there you
So
go.
that would actually play in perfect
Mhm.
with that. And then, what's this other one? Oh, the little boost of speed could be. Oh man, what's that one? Enrage or what is it? Barbarians? What's the one that Dirge does?
That's Rage, but Dirge is a barbarian.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know the exact spell.
Mhm.
We could probably look into
Sure.
it. Get some kind of empowerment,
Sure.
and maybe it boosts your speed even. And for his ultimate, it could even be like a freaking Molotov that you carry with
Sure.
you. You know what I mean? It could just be like, all right,
Right.
and it just, I don't know. You could play
okay.
that in somehow.
Let's do something maybe a bit trickier. How about if instead of a fighter, maybe he's a cleric?
Ooh. Okay. Man, I bet you could think of a lot better ways than I could for this one. But fire could just be
Okay, well,
more easier.
how about this? How about if we don't stay married to the abilities that he has in League? What if we just say, okay, now our Rumble character, our Mecha Suit Gnome, he needs to heal somebody. So what he does is he's got an attachment that he can roll out some kind of healing potion, and he launches a healing potion from his chest at one of his allies.
Okay, I see that.
Sure.
Or even a stream of some type of
Yeah.
something.
Some kind of green goop
Yeah,
that he
that heals
sprays on people.
because it's magic.
Because it's magic.
Yeah. Okay.
Other spells that clerics get can kind of sort of all be sort of explained the same way with the mecha suit. You just have the mecha suit have whatever attachments you need it to be.
Yeah.
You can even do, how about a druid, a wild-shaped druid mecha suit?
Oh damn, that would be really cool. It'd be like a transformer.
Transformer! What?
That's actually really fucking
Right.
cool.
Yeah.
It would be just like a transformer.
Yeah.
Bear form.
Right.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
And when your mecha suit takes enough damage,
And it doesn't have to be big.
it could be whatever.
Correct. When it takes enough damage.
When your mecha suit takes enough damage, the driver is injured.
Yeah.
You in Dungeons and Dragons, you get hit die throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
That hit die can be representative of how many materials you have to repair your mech suit.
Yeah, just to give it that extra flavor and
Sure.
Reasoning.
The amount of hit die that your character has represents how much how stable your mech suit is.
Yeah.
So if your wires are, grounded out, you're not going to have a lot of. You're not going to be able to run your suit for very long.
Oh, you're getting very specific. I like it though. I like it.
This is the kind of stuff that you think about it before you think about the idea before you look in the book.
Yeah, and if you don't even know, get with your DM or even get on some. Ask us.
Sure.
Ask questions.
Um,
Or get on some other resource.
There's a lot of different things that you can do though for character creation that if you have the idea of your character before you ever go into the book, it kind of frees you up a little bit, I think.
I think that's it.
Because then you're not married
so much more
to
easy.
You're not married to what the class says.
Well,
and then you're not forced to role play a class
that you're maybe not even really comfortable with. It's not personalized at all.
So
if you're just like, I'm a rogue,
exactly.
I steal.
Exactly. Maybe you're just not familiar enough with the world of whatever it is that if you say, well, I'm a rogue in this world, what does that mean? What does it mean to be a thief? Or whatever in that world, because it can mean a lot of different things depending on where you're at. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can do something like, let's see. You can draw with things that you can draw from things that you're familiar with,
Mm-hmm.
and then say, well, if I'm gonna do this, how could I do this in this fantasy world? So instead of you picking and being a rogue and just basically being the Hamburglar, yeah, twirly mustache, striped clothes and a fucking bandit's mask. Now instead you can be this noble, and you watch Game of Thrones, so you know what happens. Well, you don't watch Game of Thrones, but regular people watch Game of Thrones, and they see
real nerds.
Yeah, they see what happens on the show, and they see how these nobles move around and interact with people, and so they know that, like, when my guy goes and does this thing, this is how he talks to people.
Right.
So it kind of gives you an anchor point, because then you can say, well, this is what my character would do because this is kind of his background. So this is what my character would be familiar with. This is how he sees the world and interacts with the world. And then from there, again, that builds and that lets us do when we gain another skill. Even though the book might say, this is what this skill is. Well, that's fine if you're playing vanilla, right? But we're not.
Right.
And here's something else too, is we've already said that the book is a guideline, yeah? So
/ suggestion.
Suggestion book. It's a suggestion book.
It's
not
a
a rule book.
It's not a rule book.
Yeah. So at any point, a DM should be comfortable enough that when a player says, hey, I don't like this spell or XYZ skill, how about I do something different?
You mean like completely change it?
Completely change something.
Alright.
So,
as long as it kind of maths out about the same, I guess?
Yeah, as long as the math kind of
like
functions.
the amount of damage or whatever.
And then even then, you know what? If you're playing in a kind of game that nobody really cares,
right?
Who cares? Right? If you're playing in a game where nobody cares, then who cares? Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, why not?
Right.
Fuck it. I'm sure that has come up in the past though, where people are in a group of same as us, 7 or 8 people, and they're like, "Hey, I want to completely change this spell," and then you got that one guy that's like by the books, and he's like, "No, what are you talking about? You can't be doing that." Like, what? I'm sure that's come up in the past for people.
I'm sure it does.
I'm sure it does.
And that's kind of something that if you're rolling dice, it's already too late. This is something that you have to talk with the DM in the group about before you start rolling dice.
Yeah, I'd say that's very
So,
accurate.
Even honestly, even before the point where thinking about dice would come up. So this would be something that would come up in session 0 of a campaign. Session 0 is the character creation session. This is where you sit down and everybody's at the table, and this is when the players are, looking in the book and they're seeing what can this do, who is this character. This is the player's chance to go to the DM and say, hey, I have this idea, can I do this? And that's the DM's chance to say yes. Because let's say the player comes up with this idea where the player's like, well, I want to create this ridiculous character. I went and I was digging online. I found 36 different splat books, little paper issues of different. I went on all the different wikis and I found this ridiculous character that at level 1 they get to do 500 d8 damage. Okay. This is when, as a DM, you say, all right, cool. Go ahead and do it. Yes, you let them do that.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Now, picture this scenario.
All right.
You have a villager. Is essentially what a level 1 character is.
Yeah, a villager.
Essentially, a level 1 character is a villager.
Basically.
This villager steps out, and they do 500 d8 damage. And the DM says, okay, so you cause this huge crater in the earth. And guess what that does? That attracts the attention of the gods. They pull you in and they make you a demi-human. Now, are you ready to play the game? Roll a new character.
That's probably exactly what you would do.
Or, you have this character that can do a million bazillion damage.
Oh, God.
Great. You just trashed half the country in a single attack.
Yeah.
That's gonna get some people's attention.
Yeah.
So now you have a level 20 mage and his level 20 fighter friend, his level 20 knight friend. You have his level 20
And they're coming to
player
investigate.
friend, and they're trying to find out what just happened.
Yeah.
What caused this huge crater? Because think about it from the mindset of an adventurer. You're walking around the countryside, and all of a sudden you see this huge smoking crater in the ground.
Right.
You're gonna investigate.
I mean, I love how you're putting it. You're not making it to where, no, you can't fucking do that. It's more like, you really want to do that.
Right.
Okay.
If that's what you want to do, then that's what you want to do.
All right, let's see what happens, and we even leave it open to like fighting within the group.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to do it very often.
Right.
You can fight a little bit in your group, but don't fight amongst yourselves too much.
I've recently heard some very good advice. Is when it comes for in-group fighting, a very good idea is for the if there are going to be dice rolled to attack another player, it's
Right.
something that should be discussed with both the players and the DM before dice ever hit the table.
Absolutely.
Because not all classes are created equal, and they're certainly not created equal they're not created. Oh, there's Leia.
Hey, kitty.
Come here. Come here, baby. You going that way?
Got some cat action. Kitty cat action.
Is Twitch going to censor us for having cat butt on the screen?
Oh no.
Okay.
They like cats.
Okay. So
The kitty loves.
what I'm getting at with this is you let the DM know, and you tell the DM, hey, there's been this back and forth with our characters for however
Conflict.
long, and I'm playing the knight, and this other person is playing a necromancer,
Right.
and obviously that's an evil fucking thing to do. My character wants to stop this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now it's your responsibility as the DM to say, okay, look, you can have this conflict, but that's sort of part of what, when you look at media, that's kind of a thing that happens on, especially now that, things like the ensemble cast movies, things like Justice League, the Avengers, because those are so popular now, and you see all different archetypes working together on a team, then you're able to look at it and say, okay, well, this is what's going on here. And even though the characters have conflict with each other, sometimes there's a short argument. They might part ways for a little bit, but then they come back because ultimately they realize they're on the same team.
Exactly.
Now, if those differences can't be resolved, then
reroll.
Well, possibly, maybe. Okay. So what you can even do is something like this. You may have a scenario where we've already set it up in our campaign where if any player wants to swap out their character, there's opportunities for them to do that. And it lets everybody test out different things. We haven't had anybody do it yet, but
you're giving it option.
And I keep on saying, hey, you guys can swap out now if you want to. If not, we're
at levels up, right?
No, actually, because of the way our campaign is set up, whenever you return back to town,
Oh yeah, we can just
then you
switch
can
out.
just say, hey, this character that I'm playing right now
is doing this.
He's going to go off and do something else.
Right.
Now I want to be this guy.
And yeah, you come
And
into
now
the
you're
group.
that guy.
And then you just kind of explain yourself to the group.
And you say, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do.
Yeah,
Let's go.
This is
find
my
some
background.
diamonds."
This is some of the stuff I've done.
Yeah.
And you will need to have a little bit of that stuff thought of. You
Right.
can't just be like, "Hi, I'm
Yeah.
Ching."
And I expect you to trust me and
Yeah,
believe
trust
I am
me.
who I say I am.
Yeah, you got to make it a little bit of,
Sure. Yeah.
you know,
Absolutely.
to make sense in the current campaign situation.
But what it may be is that the characters, they say, look, this conflict between these two characters cannot be resolved unless they fight. Now, it could be the DM's prerogative to say, okay, you guys want to fight, go ahead. Now somebody drops to 0 hit points and the cleric says, no, I'm not going to res that person. Now it could be the DM's prerogative to say, okay, look, when this character gets to X hit points, a thing happens. They use a GM fiat and they say, a thing happens. And that character egresses out of here. They're gone now. And now they can have that character plotting off screen against the party.
What? You mean like a ghost haunting?
It doesn't have to be a ghost. 0 hit points does not represent death in Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
0 hit
Well, you're
points.
saying they were expunged. They were.
They fled.
They
fled.
they just fled.
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay.
0 hit points represents your character not being able to continue to battle any longer.
Okay.
So your character gets to 0 hit points. Maybe they got their arms lobbed off. I can't cast spells. I can't do shit.
I'm not dead yet.
Yeah. Maybe it's just my
flesh wound.
maybe it's my hands. I can't fight if I got no fucking hands.
Yeah.
So my character, they, bite their belt and they wrap their bloody stumps and they leave.
Okay.
And now they're all doing something else.
At the
Now they're
DM's
plotting.
discretion, I guess.
Yes. Now they're off screen. That character is off screen plotting.
Now,
Yeah.
would you? So, in that case, would you have that person that just died? That character that's now plotting, would you let them have any influence over that, or would you basically take over that? Do you know what I mean?
Yes. I think that's a good question. I don't know if I know what I would do.
Right, because that's pretty crazy, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was a hell of an idea, just to have them off screen plotting some shit.
I think it would depend on the player.
Right.
Because what you don't really want to do is you don't want to get into a situation where you're having a player also plot against themselves.
Yeah, because they're having a new character
They
now.
can kind of meta a little bit.
Yeah, it'd be kind of weird.
But again, it depends on the player and it depends on the character. Because some players will be into that and they can keep that meta knowledge separate from different characters.
Yeah.
It could be the GM that says, hey, what would this character do in this situation? Just to kind of get an idea of what they would do.
You know how cool that would be, though, to like legitimately have two that fought, and then one loses, and they flee, and then later, like 10
They
levels,
return.
you see them later, and you
Right.
actually have to fight your old character.
Sure.
That is cool.
Now this is something
That's
that
crazy.
we see this kind of thing happening in other medias, right?
Yeah.
Movies, TV shows.
Yeah, you really do.
A lot of video games. It's
And
kind
that's
of
a cool
tropey
way
thing.
to enter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's no reason why it
Bring
cannot
it in.
be a part of a tabletop role playing game.
That's cool. Man, you thought of some. I don't think about this kind of stuff. That's pretty crazy.
You will eventually. You
Yeah.
will eventually.
I will.
You'll
Yeah, you're
start
right,
to-
you're right.
You'll start to be like, you'll watch a TV show or you'll read a book and you'll say, I wonder if I could do this in
D&D.
You know, as a DM, a lot of my influences come from things other than just fantasy media.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, maybe I'll watch RoboCop, and something kind of neat will happen in the movie. And maybe it'll only be like 8 or 10 minutes, but maybe there'll be a scene that I'm like, hey, that's really cool. I wonder if I can extract something from this and put it into the game.
Right.
And then I'll take that out and I'll say, okay, now I have to translate this into a fantasy setting. So then I kind of twist the knobs a little bit. I turn some handles and I adjust the bars up and down. And now I have something that I can put into a fantasy game.
Okay. I can definitely see that, yeah.
So, and it's the same with characters too. Let's say you're watching a movie or you're playing a completely unrelated video game or you're watching a TV show. Maybe you even see a cartoon, Bugs Bunny even, and they do one very small thing on the show, and you're like, hey, that was a really neat idea. I wonder if I can take that one little, a little bitty piece of that idea and flesh it out and change it so that it's not so cartoony and put it into D&D and make that a character thing.
I see what you mean.
Mm-hmm. You could do an Elmer Fudd.
You could do Elmer Fudd. You could do the Roadrunner.
You could have an inept hunter trying to, you know, feed his family, going out hunting. He gets duped, and now that's your character. Done.
Yep.
Level 1 ranger.
Yeah. And you can even have blunderbusses and is it bust? How do you say that word?
Blunderbussize.
Besides.
Buses.
Blunderbuses.
Yeah.
What?
Blunderbees.
Blunderbusts?
Blunderboos?
I don't know.
BBs.
Blunder BBs.
Yeah,
Doesn't it just shoot one at a time, like, and then you have to reload it? But it was more of a shotgunny effect.
You know, it's been a long time since I've had to
You shot
load
a blunderbuss.
blunderbuss. So
I knew you were going to say that. I was thinking they were the kind that just, it's more like a shotgun. It has like a cone, like more like a horn. Starts off small and then gets big. I thought that was a blunderbuss.
I think that's a horn that does that.
Never mind. Oh, okay.
So we've talked a little bit.
Covered some good topics.
We talked about a lot of different things. We talked about, you know, and a lot of our focus was building your character before you open the book.
Yes.
And then once you do open the book, look at what the book has to offer. And think about your character and think, well, how can I adapt my character's idea to, and you could even go through each and every class and think, how can I adapt it to each different thing?
Mm-hmm.
And whichever one matches the best, go with that.
Right.
Okay.
And then adjust the way the skills look to
Right.
however you want it.
Right, exactly. And even now that we're sitting here talking and I'm kind of thinking about it, now I'm kind of thinking about, you know, if I was a player character and I wanted to do like a Freddy Krueger,
Oh.
something that,
Something from Dead by Daylight.
yeah, well, Freddy Krueger is actually from.
I know, but
before then, but
there's all kinds of
yeah,
killers in that.
but you know, if I'm wanting to play, I'm sorry,
The woman?
Yeah, it's the old lady. She's sending me memes.
Oh.
Yeah. So, you know, now I'm playing Freddy Krueger, and I'm thinking about, well, what does Freddy Krueger do?
Right.
How does he do what he does? Well, when we watch the movies, what he does is he attacks people's dreams. He causes them harm by attacking them through their dreams. So there's a lot of different ways that we can do this with each different character.
You could. Man, that is a cool one to even think about.
Yeah.
Like you could be like not an enchantress, but you could be something along those lines where you have to sleep them first.
Well, you wouldn't even have to.
Right, you wouldn't have to. But that could be for like extra damage or something.
Consider this, okay? Let's say you're playing a fighter, but really your fighter is Freddy Krueger.
Right.
Okay. Now, every time that you attack them, what you're really doing is you're momentarily having them enter some sort of hypnotic state.
Oh my god. Okay, I see
and
what you're saying.
that temporary hypnotic state opens them up to attack. Okay? And during those brief seconds, you can come up,
right.
The ridiculous stuff that Freddy does in the movies.
Yeah.
He smashes a girl's face into a TV. Welcome to primetime, bitch. That's the best line, right? He slashes people through their clothes. Now, if you're doing this in D&D, you can be a fighter, and you slash somebody, they accidentally fall asleep, and you slash them with your Freddy claws.
Yeah. You could even make it like a react. You could do whatever
all
you
kinds
want.
of things. If you're a wizard, you're...
Oh,
Look at this.
Neptune.
All right.
Neptune, my
Neptune,
boy.
thank you very much. So what we're doing here, we're talking about Dungeons & Dragons. A lot of our discussion is focused on 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, but it can be extended out to any role-playing game. And we're really really encouraging out-of-the-box thinking.
Yes.
Tonight we've discussed using the mechanics of 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons to pull in characters from League of Legends, horror movies like Nightmare on Elm Street,
Freddy Krueger,
bringing him, and using the mechanics that are given to you in Dungeons & Dragons and actually be able to use those in...
We both come up with some pretty cool characters.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if any of you guys play League or anything, but we were just like, we want to create Udyr in the game. He's the guy that can turn into a bear form or a bear form. Bear, turtle, or what was the other? Phoenix.
Yes.
So
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And there's several ways you could do it. You could have him as an actual druid, and he could physically change forms, or he could just call on the bear,
To explain the amount of damage that he does with this.
Right. And instead of your hands coming in, it's a claw, and you're, I don't know, it's just, there's so many ways you can take all these,
and then I liked where you went with the mecha suit too.
Oh, Rumble.
Yeah.
From League. Yeah, man.
Talk that one over.
Well, yeah, so
for those that don't know what a rumble is.
Yeah, so a rumble from League of Legends is he's this little bitty guy. He's kind of like a gnome, I guess you could say, or whatever. And he's actually driving this mech suit in the game. So for D&D, you could just be simply a fighter. That's one role that you could be. You could be a fighter that he's like. For instance, in the game, one of his abilities is he blows flame out in front of him. And then another ability is he gets like a small burst of energy or a shield, and then a little burst of speed. So that's something you could definitely do with, it'd be like haste in D&D or something like that even. But for for his flame, since you're a fighter, you're not just going to pull flame out of you. You could if you thought about it all correctly. But anyway, I was thinking more like a barrage of fists, because in the game it's like a cone flame.
Quick jabs.
Yeah, but a bunch of quick jabs or whatever. I mean, it's just.
And then as that character levels up, it's sort of like Tony Stark, as he gets better at creating.
Yes. Throughout the Iron Man movies,
he makes better Iron Man.
Yeah, better. Yeah.
That have more gadgets and things attached, and the suits become more durable, and that explains your durability.
Yes.
In mechanical terms, for what you're doing,
like
thematically.
Like seriously, just thinking about it like this, where you're actually thinking of the character that you want to make before you even open the book.
Yeah, don't even open the book.
Don't even open the book.
That's the general theme of what we've been talking about tonight. Is before you open the book, already have your character made.
Yeah, what's up, man? 50 followers. I know, finally, right? That's what's up. I appreciate the raid for real.
Yeah, really cool.
We did get another follower.
I think it would be really neat too if some
JR Racing Fan. Thank you very much.
JR.
Just another follower. That was their name.
Is that a
JR?
Yeah. Is that a?
I don't know.
I would think that you.
Jared was a race car driver. Is that what they're going for?
I don't know. I would think because of your because of your background where you were born.
Oh, yeah.
I would think that you would be
Tennessee.
Yeah, Tennessee. I would think that you would be kind of in tune with that. Is that not?
Maybe a little bit.
So that's what I'm asking. Is JR a famous racer that I should know about?
Just not really.
Oh, okay.
No.
Maybe that's buddy.
I'm not sure who he's playing JR, but he's a racing fan.
Okay.
Maybe it's just Junior.
Junior, like Dale.
Oh, like Dale Earnhardt.
So is it? You think it's a junior?
It probably is.
What's his number?
Oh.
You have it tattooed, right?
I know, right?
You have
Thanks, Neptune.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. tattoo, right?
Yeah, on my forehead.
Oh, that's why you wear the bangs like that.
Yeah, no, can't see it. There's also a little lightning bolt like Harry Potter over there. But no, Neptune. Thanks,
a lot
buddy.
Of stuff going on
I really appreciate it, dude. Like, how did your stream go? I know you were messing with Akogar. How does that one? How do you?
I don't know what that is.
It's a hack, a Mario hack. He's one of my Mario.
Oh, he's Mario.
Mario buddy. Yeah,
okay, cool.
He sent him over.
Yeah.
From Mario. I don't know if there's. I mean, Mario's super old school, super old retro. So I mean, there's probably a lot of D&D players that love Mario and vice versa. You know. Akogari. That's how it's pronounced. It was decent. Did you get past that one level you were on with the chucks? I remember you messing with the chucks.
Chucks, like shoes?
No, you know what? Just watch my Mario stream, Opie.
I try to. I get ragey watching your Mario stream.
You get angry watching my Mario
Yes.
stream. Oh man, let me do the gameplay and you just sit back and watch.
I actually broke 2 controllers watching you play Mario.
Damn.
I went to Walmart, bought 2 controllers, came
guy.
home, and I smashed them.
Nice.
It was terrible.
Oh, you just beat it. So it took the whole... I get it, dude. It took the whole session just to beat a level. I think I've been on one level for the end of one session and then an entire another stream. So about 4 hours I've been on one level.
Before you started playing Mario, I didn't even know what alcohol tasted like.
Why are you making me feel so
I turned into an alcoholic watching
That's
you
how
play.
bad I am at the game.
That's how bad you are.
The many deaths of Mario.
It was
Under
terrible.
the command of Cabe.
It was terrible. It was the worst thing I ever seen in my life.
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, what else do we even want to tell in the people that just dropped in here? Because we were talking to just a couple for a while.
Well, I don't know how many people are still around, but, you know, a lot of what we're...
Absolutely, buddy.
A lot of what we're talking about tonight is kind of like rethinking the entire approach to what it means when you open up a book and you're looking at the different classes in D&D. So maybe you're not terribly interested in, the wizard with the staff and the long white beard.
Right.
But maybe you're more like me, where I'm not going to sit down and read, all these different fantasy novels, but I can sit down and plow through, 300 comic books.
Right.
That's my background. I love comic books. So it could be something that to encourage people to play these games.
New player.
New player. You say, hey, look, man, do you want to play Green Lantern in this game? Cool. You can be Green Lantern.
You can literally make anything.
Yeah, and you really can be Green Lantern.
Because there's magic in this.
The great thing is Green Lantern can fit so nicely into a fantasy game. Because you say, so Green Lantern has this ring, he puts on the ring, and now you're a fighter Green Lantern. So every time you slash at somebody with your sword, you're manifesting a sword with your Green Lantern ring.
Right. And it still does all the mechanics of the game, but you're giving it a flavor.
When the DM introduces a new magic item for you, if you're the Green Lantern player, what that DM has done for you is he has given you a new way to use your ring.
Right.
So he gives you a +1 flaming sword.
Yeah.
Cool. Now I'm using my ring to create this flaming sword.
So you just put it to the
right.
That makes sense.
Or if we look at somebody who's much more into anime rather than comic books or fantasy, they love anime. They love Dragon Balls. They love the other anime things. What the hell anime is there?
There's all kinds of anime.
You watch anime.
I don't really get into anime
love
that
anime.
much. I like the last anime I watched.
You have
Vampire Hunter D.
You have a Sailor Moon tattoo, so
You keep coming up with this crazy shit. Sailor Moon, he says. Oh, I'd rather have Pokemon tattooed on me.
Well, you already do.
Oh, okay.
So it's convenient. Yeah.
What
So,
time is it?
are you getting sleepy?
I am, and I gotta drive still.
You do. Well, we can wrap it up anytime you're ready. But
we'll be actually playing D&D
We
tomorrow
will.
and streaming it.
yes.
And we'll probably have 2 cams is what I'm thinking.
Do you think that?
One for the board
Okay.
and the players.
Okay.
Characters.
Yes.
And then probably one for you.
I think people are interested in seeing me.
I think the DM just deserves his own cam.
And I think people like.
Even if it's my channel, the DM needs his own cam.
I think people want to see me.
Yeah. How about this shirt though, huh? Who is this? Can somebody tell me who this is?
It looks like.
Who is this?
It looks like the thing from the lagoon.
Lagoon?
Yeah, the lagoon.
Like a lagoon monster?
Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Maybe it
like
is. Because I've looked on the tag and it doesn't say what it is. I think it's either like Aquaman, like old school, old school,
I don't
like
care
comic,
how.
comic Aquaman. Okay,
Do push up.
old school. Or I never thought about the lagoon, but I was also thinking, what was the other one? Oh man.
You said Aquaman.
Yeah, no, I meant to say like a Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing.
It's not Swamp Thing.
Anyway, we are
Swamp
wrapping
Thing,
it up.
Swamp Thing.
Oh, or the creature from The Shape of Water.
I like that movie.
That was that was an off the wall movie, but it was really good. Thanks, Neptune. You are correct, sir.
It's not a movie that you want to watch with children.
Yeah,
The water movie. You don't want to watch that with kids in the room.
There's some rough scenes in there.
Yeah, it's pretty.
But
Well, what do you know? Once again, as usual.
That's it. That's the picture. Who is it?
As usual.
The creature from the Black Lagoon. Okay, that's who it is.
As usual, I'm right.
So
what do you know?
So for instance,
I'm surprised that I'm right. Not me.
For instance, Neptune Neon. I was telling him earlier because I stopped into history, and I was telling him earlier about what we were doing tonight.
Yeah.
That's why he did that
Yeah.
so kindly. But I was telling him like a DM, and he was like, "What does DM stand for again?" So I mean, there's people.
Yeah.
Nothing against him, but like they're brand new. They don't know anything about this game.
So what really what a role-playing game is in general. And this is something that I really wish a lot of new DMs understood. Is it's a group activity. It's not one team versus another team. It's something that everybody has to work together, because if when people sit down, if their goal is to be the best one at cost of everybody else at the table, it's going to reduce the size of the group to one person very quickly. So what it is, it's a group-based storytelling session where one person is the narrator or the judge or referee, and everybody else is the main characters or the active players, or...
You know how I explained it to him earlier?
Okay, tell me.
So here's how I explained it to him in video game terms. So, you are the console.
Ah, yes.
We are playing within your game.
Yes.
And we are the characters in that
game. In that analogy, who's touching the joysticks?
We are touching the joysticks.
So you're touching the joysticks in real life and in the analogy.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Dungeons and Dragons is pretty cool.
It really is, isn't it? you could do whatever you want in D&D. Like,
you can. And that was the main theme of our discussion tonight.
Another thing
was being able to do what you want.
Now this is not exactly on the character creation thing, but I think this is worth bringing up.
Okay, bring it up.
I hate it when DMs make your game very linear. Meaning.
Okay.
Meaning.
You know what? I feel like
that's a whole new topic on itself.
We can definitely talk about this.
Maybe
the next time.
Monday or something.
Sure. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think there are things that both the DM and players can do to avoid railroading, is what it's called. Linear games. It's a very common expression in role-playing games. It's railroading.
Okay.
Yes, it's very common, and it's not fun, because what you know about role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games, is you get to do anything you want. You go.
And if your DM says, no, you can't do that, you need to go here, and you're like, I don't want to go there.
Right, then
and then there's already like this conflict building up.
Sure.
That you can cut with a knife.
If you're playing a game that you don't get a choice in what to go, you may as well be playing
why am I playing if I don't get to do whatever I want?
You may as well be playing a side-scrolling shooter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or a side-scrolling platform. The path is laid out, you just follow along. Hit the steps where you're supposed to, and go. But and I think that's a great topic for the next time. And I think we can really drill down and get into ways for, to avoid it, both as the DM and the player.
Yes.
And just like a lot of what we were talking about today, a lot of this stuff has to happen before dice ever even hit the table. Yeah. Because if dice are being rolled, it's already too late.
It's go time.
Yeah.
You're in it.
You're in it already.
Can't go back.
You've already accepted the social contract with everybody else at the table, and everybody has already agreed that this is what we're doing. And then it's just too late. Yeah. No backsies. Sometimes there's backsies, but not like that.
Not usually. Oh, it's Vic. I pronounce your name different every time. Vic Gondrelas. That's another one of my boys, man. He's another Mario guy that I watch.
He's not a football player, is he?
This one doesn't look like a football player, but you can certainly ask him.
There was a Vic that played football.
I don't know if this is the one.
He raised dogs?
This guy has long hair.
Oh.
And he plays some pretty good Mario.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's new like me. Newerish. I'm newer than both of these guys. Neptune or Vic. But what's up, guys?
Well, I know you're not talking about age.
Oh, I think we're all about the same age.
So they're all in their late 40s as well?
I'm 30-ish. Anyway. You're not even that old. You're like, what, 34?
I'm 27. Thank you.
Nice. But yeah, just talking about D&D. I know this is not what everybody loves, but it's part of my life. This guy lives it.
I've been DMing for about 16 years.
Yeah.
And I've been exposed to role-playing games in general before then. I kind of fell into DMing because it was one of those things. I had the table space and the books bought, and everybody else said,
Out of play.
and then I fell into it, and it was a rough thing to kind of break into when there was nobody to say, "Hey, this is how you do it."
This is how you do it, right?
So
and back then, you couldn't even go on the internet.
They had the internet back then.
Bull crap.
Yeah.
When you first started, all you had was the books, right?
I had the books, but there
You still had the interwebs?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking he's older than he is.
How long do you think 16 years ago was?
I just love messing with you.
When you're, see, this is what
back in the day before pencils.
This is what happens when you get too old.
Before dice was a
When
thing.
you get too old and somebody says 16 years ago, you think 16 years ago was 1983.
Oh, jeez.
Right? So,
yeah. All right.
16 years ago was still
So anyway, guys.
in the 2000s.
Oh, I did want to say that Opie and all of his magnificence, as far as an actual, like, a character sheet, because there are... Do you have a handy character sheet real fast? We can
No.
just flash.
No.
Okay. Anyway, so on character sheets from Wizards, which is who creates D&D, they have all kinds of stuff that you list on these character sheets, okay? Like lots of numbers, like lots and lots and lots of numbers. And a lot of that stuff doesn't even pertain to what
You're not going to use it.
like you're literally never going to use it,
But
except for like when you level up.
You need the numbers.
You do need the numbers, but you don't need them all the time. Like you only need specific numbers, like well, we'd have to get into more details. But basically, what I'm saying is, there's a character sheet.
I think a good analogy would be a Excel spreadsheet. There's a lot of stuff that happens in the background of an Excel
That is a good
spreadsheet.
analogy.
Sure.
Like the commands and stuff in the back.
There's a lot of stuff that's going on in the background, but all you need to know is some of this and this is this.
Right.
That's all you care about. And it's the same way.
Yeah.
For
I mean, it's
C&D.
The character sheets that they want you to use have so much stuff on it. You actually get a little overwhelmed as a new character. And even still with me, I'm like, you want me to do what now? I need to make a roll for that? Okay. And then you're looking at it and you're like, okay, well, that's my number. Okay. And then I have to add this to it. And then I have to add this to it because that's one of my skills. And then I have to add this to it because that's one of my items. No. Just wrap all those add all that stuff and put it into this one little number.
Sure.
And make it easy to see.
Sure. And part of my thinking about that is when you play a video game. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
All that stuff's done for you.
It's all done for you,
Yeah.
and the game will only present to you the information that you need.
Yeah.
In a lot of video games, it will be your health bar.
Yeah.
You have a health bar here. That's the information that you need. You have, if you're playing a shooter, you have your health bar and you have your ammo. That's the information you need. There might be other things on there, but only the information you need is presented to you. And I think that not having it be intuitive to the player is something that can be very intimidating to new players.
Yes, absolutely so. I mean, even for me, it was rough getting into the game.
I think until... I think that I would still consider you at a level where you're still a new player.
Absolutely, yes, I agree.
Because realistically, this is still the first campaign that you've ever been a part of.
Long ago in high school, me and some friends played, and we were all ecstatic about playing the game, But our DM, along with us, was completely new. and we followed the books to the T.
Mm-hmm.
We started at level 0.
So when those books said rule book,
It was
the rule book.
there was no going away.
Not the
There was
suggestion
no
book.
Yeah, it was the rule book. It wasn't the suggestion book. There was no fraying away from it or anything.
Mm.
And it literally took us, I think, 4 months to level up once.
Mm.
And we were just like, this
Um,
sucks.
And that can be okay. If you're taking a long time to level up, can be okay. It can be okay.
That was too long.
But
Too
as
long.
this is one of those things that it's the DM's so it's the DM's responsibility to determine when leveling up happens. In a side-scrolling platformer game, you never level up.
Nope.
You go to a different level.
You might get new
You go
abilities.
to a different location, but you never level up.
Mm.
But you don't care either because your location is changing. The things that you're doing is different. You have to take those same skills that you have and apply them in different ways. And
Yeah.
that's what I mean by saying it's the DM's responsibility that if you're going to stretch out a level over 4 months, it's the DM's responsibility to make those 4 months interesting where
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter.
To an extent, I agree with you.
But the
But
game
you know the
being-
game is already a grind. And
The
if
game-
it really takes that long, it's almost like a depression state.
I agree. The game being what it is, everybody, including the DM, realistically, because the higher level that you and your party get, the cooler that I can make the monsters that you're
Sure.
fighting against. When the party started, there's no way that I could throw, for example, the monster that you guys fought last night on the
No,
elevator.
yeah, you could.
Or not last night, last week.
Last week.
The monster you guys fought on the elevator with all
That
the
was
other
pretty
little
fun.
monsters coming up.
Yeah, all the
There's
ads.
no way that I could have given that to you
From
at
the
level
book.
1. From the book either, for that matter.
Absolutely not from the book.
But I could not have done that at a lower level. But now that you're higher level, I don't mind doing that.
Right.
I can give you that monster, and I can throw more monsters on top of that. It doesn't matter. It's fine. I can do that kind of stuff, and it's great. But I think that we can talk about the character sheet on another show, and maybe we'll because I do other things too in preparing for games.
Yeah, you do.
I have a lot of, but the thing is, sort of like if I do it once and I get it right, then I have a tool that I can use again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like how I think of it. So on the back of my DM screen, I have a matrix that has all the players' information on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to come up with it once, but now that I have it and I've been using it, I can see that it works, and now I can keep using it. And if we play a different game,
Yeah.
I can take the same idea, adjust it, and then use it again.
Right.
So it's in addition to it being a tool that you can use, there's also kind of a thought process that goes into it. So you have to understand what it is that you're doing and how you get from where you are. You have something, you don't have anything, or you have something that's not useful, and then in the end you need to have something that's useful. So that's something that we can go over. And then also railroading, something else
Yeah,
that you talked about. that you
Definitely
wanted to
avoid
do.
railroading. Oh yeah, that was the other thing I wanted to say. Like
What do you want to say?
our old,
Say it.
like my old
Nobody's going to interrupt
crew, the DM.
you. You just talk.
He was just
Nobody's going to stop you from talking.
he was very linear, very railroadish.
Mm-hmm.
And so it got to the point to where we were just like, I want to go to the bar. I want to go talk to a random lady and try to get with her. You know, we're just talking
and
silly.
being in a railroad game can be okay. This is one of those things, though, that this is something that has to be discussed before dice hit the table. If the I've done this in games before, especially when it's a new system. We sit down at the table and I said, look, I'm going to run everything that you guys do straight out of the book because I don't know the system, you guys don't know the system, so we're just going
Get
to
a
use
feel for it.
all the printed material and this is what we're going to do. But this was something that I discussed ahead of time.
Right,
Party
so they
agreed.
already know.
And when it's
That's a good way
something
to do
like
it.
that, what I would do is I would roll all the dice in front of the screen for everybody to see. Because it's not just enough that I'm running out of the book. I also want them to see that, hey, this is what's going on. And that way, you know, if we switch seats, if now I get to be a player and they're in the DM seat, then they can see, oh, okay, well, this is what's going on behind the screen.
Okay.
You know, it kind of gives a different perspective.
Right. Different sides of it.
But a lot of times, you know, it always comes down to, you know, talk about it before it gets that far.
Okay. So yeah.
So I think we had some, and you know, next week when we do this, we can kind of talk about what we did in our campaign game a little bit.
I think we should leave a couple minutes open at the end for maybe a little Q&A.
Okay.
If they have any questions. I
Yeah,
mean,
Mike,
if you guys
sometimes
have any
people have
questions, like just a general question, it can be the stupidest, you think it's the stupidest question, but it's not because you're new. Ask
It's kind of
away.
like double dutch.
Or you could even PM
Try
us. Private messages questions.
Hmm.
That's fine. Well, you don't have an account yet. That's another thing. We need
I
to get
don't have
Opie
a-
a channel.
Streaming channel. I have a Twitch account.
Oh, then you have it.
Yeah.
You're ready. You just need to stream. But maybe next time for the Q&As, because it's already getting late. Honestly, I'm kind of tired. I got to drive still, and I got to be up early. I got to be up at 7. So I think it went kind of cool.
Yeah.
We had some fun.
Yeah.
We went over some good topics. We will be playing tomorrow. We'll have the whole crew.
Yeah.
There's like, hopefully nobody's calling out. Do we know yet? We don't know.
We don't know.
Okay. Sometimes people call out.
I'll find out about 10 minutes before.
About 10 minutes before we actually go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it'll be kind of the same time that I went live tonight. Let's see. Actually, it'll be earlier. It'll be earlier than when I went live tonight. It'll be earlier by about 45 minutes, I think. Anyway. All right. Thanks for joining in.
Really appreciate people that stop by.
Absolutely. Neptune, thank you for the raid. Greatly appreciate it.
Neptune's a god.
In this case, it's just a mortal man.
Oh.
He's immortal. All right. Catch us tomorrow. We'll be playing some D&D. You guys have a good time.
All right. Good night.
Episode 1 down.
Done.
Take care, guys.